Let's get ready to RPG!
RPG! RPG! RPG! RPG! RPG!
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, and welcome to the Knights of Last Call. We are on a special time today because I am off of work. And as a result of that, I always like to take these opportunities to try to do a midday stream. We have some folks, of course, who can't make our evening streams. This is very nice for our European friends, as well as perhaps, Americans, North Americans who, don't have time in the evening to catch our streams live. So maybe they can, check it out on their lunchtime or something. The only person we're really screwing over is our friends over in Australia and New Zealand, because it's like, 2, 3 in the morning there, something like that. So welcome, everyone. Very excited again to be here. We put together this stream, and I put a poll together, and I said, all right, Europeans, you get to vote for our patrons. What do you want to do? So we had some, it was pretty close, contentious voting, but ultimately the one that won was a first look, because I literally know nothing about this game. So this is about as first look as it gets of arguably Europe's #1 RPG, which is The Dark Eye. So I say arguably because I just went to ChatGPT and I said, hey, give me a list. Like, what are the top RPGs in Europe? And it's like Dark Eye. And they're like, although Dungeons and Dragons is obviously kind of like #1 in terms of European. But the one thing it did really highlight is that, there's a lot of different regional and national differences between the European countries in terms of what games that are #1. And, one of the games that was mentioned was like Warhammer Fantasy, obviously. We know that Drakar Okdominir or whatever, Dragonbane, is very popular, in certain countries. And so, and I'm sure there's, Spanish RPGs and Italian RPGs that we don't know about. But I will say that, certainly, I'm not saying this is going to be like a referendum on European RPGs, but it's certainly the case that for us here at Knights of Last Call, both in our personal games and in our Patreon, that, we've been playing a lot of European RPGs. So, my home game, we just started a process, session 0. People are making characters. We're talking about builds. We're talking about backstories. We're talking about how to integrate into a world of Fabula Ultima, which comes out of Italy. And, of course, Dragonbane is still one of our biggest games that is happening on the server. Bob is running a Dragonbane campaign for some patrons. And, of course, boom. Another Free League game. I'm really excited about the One Ring, which, again, is it's published by Free League now, but it was originally produced by Cubicle 7, which is, I believe, out of the UK. So European games are definitely hot right now. We just did a first look on Troubleshooters, which I know Ben is running on the server for some patrons. That's a French game. So lots of European influence. And Outgunned is a Free League game now. Okay, right, but even that's right. That's, what is it, Three Blind Mice, and I think they're an Italian company. In fact, one of my favorite games, although it was originally started in the U.S., but Fantasy Flight Games transferred their RPG division, including Legend of the Five Rings, to Edge Studios, which I believe is a Spanish game design studio. So lots of European influence, which I think is really, really cool. Two Little Mice, Three Blind Mice, it's one or the other, but okay, Two Little Mice. Don't get me wrong on that. So what's up, everybody? So a couple things, if you're new here. Well, I guess we're going to start here with a super chat. Thank you. Ikamos. Ikamos says, thanks to you and Tundalus for the Trespasser stream. Really enjoyed that. Could you please put this in the dungeon pot? I'm in my dungeon phase. Oh, okay. So you want me to swap it over and put it in there? Okay, I'll do that. Hey, we got a tip from Lord High Summoner.
LHS tipped $5. I can't believe we got the Dark Eye before we got RuneQuest.
Some things just aren't fair. I'm sorry to say, my friend. I'm sorry. One day it will be your time and you will be victorious. But it is not this day. There will come a day, an hour of wolves, when the age of men comes crashing down, when the age of RuneQuest. But it is not this day. Thank you, Lord High Summoner. We'll get there someday. Yeah. When we approach the heat death of the universe, RuneQuest will have its day. It'll be the last. It'll be the last video that this channel ever produces. Anyways, thank you, Lord High Summoner. But Ikemos, yeah, I'll put it in the dungeon pot. I mean, obviously, I've been thinking a lot about dungeons myself, because I'm running Torchbearer, and even our Final Fantasy inspired Fabula Ultimate game, we want to have dungeon crawls, I guess would be the way that I would describe it. And so I've been obviously on a kind of a dungeon kick myself. And big shout out to Tundalus. That was a great stream, and I thought he did a great job. And well, quite frankly, it was very popular, and we did really well. I don't know why the super chat isn't updating. I changed it. Let's see here. 11. Save. All right, well, maybe it will. Maybe it just takes a little minute to kick in. I don't know. What was I going to say? Anyways, lots of European stream, lots of so. Oh, they're Swedish, not French. Oh, I did not know that. Goblins and Enter. Thank you, Goblin. I thought they were French.
Smenden tip $10. Appreciate you doing a European stream for those of us who can't usually be there. Live for your normal ones. Want to add to the pot for some more of these, please?
Absolutely. Happy to do it, and happy to do it. Let's do this. Okay. It really wants to just keep that 518 in super chat, but it's all been put into Dungeon Creation stream. But thank you so much, Spenden. I really appreciate it. And again, it's great to get to talk and see new folks in the chat, which is a lot of fun for me. So, and while I'm happy to do a first look, because that's what the patrons voted for. First look, unfortunately, once we get into them, I usually am more focused on the PDF, and so it's a little bit harder for me to interact with the chat unless you bring my attention up with a chat, a tip, or a super chat. So hopefully we can get to doing some more where it's just more casual, more interactive, because I really do appreciate that. Oh, that's what I wanted to say. So one of the things is, we don't get a lot of views, and we don't get a lot of on our videos. We get 1,000 or 2,000 views, and we get a lot of people who really seem to like our stuff. But because I never ask for it, we never get any likes or comments or subscriptions. So if you're enjoying this content, please drop a like, maybe drop a comment, because it's the only way that YouTube will ever send our stuff out to other people. It's already going to be a tough sell, because they're going to see a 4-hour video and be like, oh my God, I'm never clicking on that. But if we could, if we could get to that one person, that'd be awesome. Also, we're really close to 13,000 subs. And while I understand I will never get to a 100,000 sub play button, it would be cool someday to maybe get to 25,000 subs. So if you could help me out there, if you're not a subscriber, subscribe. And if you could smash that like button. Thanks, Bob. So hello, everybody. It's fantastic. So Luke Casterbull is mentioning that it is Germany's #1 TTRPG. That is for certain. But again, it was a little ambivalent about it. It certainly has been around a long time and has sold really, really well. So that's cool, Leland. I can't imagine it's getting a ton of press. I think their last update was about 4 or 5 years ago. So sorry, Mark. Apologize. And Riff says, Derek's doing the Dark Eye. I am. As a German, that makes me happy, even though my game of choice is D&D and not our own game. And that's okay. That's fine. Again, I don't know anything about this game at all. So, yes, I'm not even going to try to pronounce that in actual German. Das Schwarze Auge? Schwarze Auge? Would that be how I would pronounce that? The Dark Eye. Tyler, welcome. All Dark from our Patreon. I'm glad you're here. Peter's throwing some shade on DSA, which is, of course, what the Germans would call this game. I would call it TDE because of the Dark Eye. Keith, I am on vacation as well, which is why we're here. What's up, Jackal? What's up, Smenden? What is up? It does sound like, so yes, I was saying that I said it sounded like something from Eurovision. I used to date an Israeli girl, and she was like obsessed with Eurovision. So we used to watch Eurovision. I didn't really watch it, but it was like on, you know. Do something like that for Euro RPGs. Welcome. Hello, Sidon. How's it going? Todd, welcome. Sam, hello. John, Peter is apparently also in Hamburg. Welcome. Good afternoon, Pathfinder. Who's ready to run tons of color-coded D20s? Oh, I'm already excited. Now listen, if I end up shitting on your national favorite pastime RPG, I apologize in advance. European stream proceeds to the day that I'm working late. I apologize, MCRP. But what's up, Full Metal Dragon? Oh, we had a couple more. Hey, what's going on? Anthony says, Hulk smash that like button.
I am strong.
Anthony, good to see you. Awesome for you to drop in, and thank you for that super chat. Good seeing you, buddy. Hides his eyes. Hey, thanks for the Euro-friendly stream, and hello from London. Well, thank you, Hides his eyes. And yeah, absolutely. I'd love to be able to do this like once a month. I mean, it's maybe a little bit tougher for me to do, but yeah, I think it'd be awesome to try to do this more often, just because we have so many people who appreciate us and are in different time zones than North America. So, imagine this is our biggest stream ever. It turns out that I was a Euro streamer. Although, to be fair, being midday does kind of, skew the metric there a little bit. All right. The Dark Eye. Here we go. Okay. So first things first, The Dark Eye is an RPG out of Germany. It was created in the 80s. This is what I gathered from buying it. And it, of course, has been translated. You finally learned how to change your name in YouTube. All right, awesome. The name is literally The Black Eye, but apparently The Black Eye might not translate as well to English, so we call it The Dark Eye. It's kind of like Dragonbane, right? So it's demons and dragons, obviously D&D, right? Dragonbane. But the thing is, dragons are good to roll in Dragonbane. Demons are the bad things, and banes are associated with rolling badly, and so it should be called Demon Bane, or I don't know, Dragon Boon. So the fact that they call the game Dragonbane is actually kind of strange, because really it should be called Demon Bane. But anyways, I guess dragon helps you connect with D&D, I suppose. So right off the bat, again, this is first look, so we're just gonna do my usual process. For those of you who are new to this, the way I look at a first look, this is not a renew. This is not a review. I've not played this game. I probably will not be playing this game, but who knows? But what I can do is just give you my first impression of the game. And also when I'm taking a look at it, I'm looking for how does this game grab me? What stands out to me? Interesting mechanics, awkward mechanics, great art, good art, wonderful design, poor design, graphic design, interesting mechanics that make me sort of, want to look a little closer. But also, too, I'm trying to answer Jared Sorensen's big three questions, which are, what is this game about? Does the game even know? Thank you, Goblins. Cheers to you, my friend.
Goblins and Androids tipped $10. Yes to more EU-friendly streams. Smile.
Absolutely. Well, again, so many of our even so many of our patrons are Europeans, and so again, I'd really like to try to make this like a monthly thing, and not always just do first look, so we could actually just hang out and chat and do stuff. But thank you, Goblins and Androids. I really appreciate it. As one of our resident Euro patrons who's holding it down. But Jared Sorensen. So the first thing is, what is this game about? Does it even know? Does it do a good job of explaining to it? Is this a game that says this is a game for everybody and everything? In my experience, the bigger a menu is at a restaurant, the lower quality of the food. Don't go to Cheesecake Factory. Number two, okay, if the game says it's about something, do the mechanics of the game actually support what the game says it is about? If the game says it's called Dungeons and Dragons, does it have a lot of great mechanics to support running dungeons and fighting dragons? Right? That should be our qualification. If the game says it's a game of heroic fantasy adventure, does it give us the tools, the mechanics to support heroic fantasy adventure? And then number three, what are the game's reward systems? Ultimately, I know it's a sin to talk about this, but games are games. And games are designed to reward or encourage behavior. And as I've always said in this stream, because I used to say it at work, right? What gets measured gets managed, and what gets rewarded gets repeated. So if you create play patterns and reward cycles which encourage and reward behavior, then you are going to set up a situation where the fun thing, the interesting thing to do, is also the right thing to do. And now you have created this opposite of a death spiral. You've created this, growth cycle, this growth spiral where the players are going to want to do this thing anyways because it seems fun and interesting. The game is going to reward that and encourage that, and they're going to double down on it, and it's going to naturally create a play pattern that's going to feel very rewarding for you as the GM and for the players as well. So fundamentally, that is what we're looking at. So the first thing that's going to stand out for me is I don't know if I love the art. It's got a painterly look to it, which I don't mind. But I don't know. It feels strangely generic. I don't know how else to describe it. I don't think it's bad by any stretch of the imagination. It's just this cover art. It's not particularly compelling to me. It looks like they're robbing something. There's some people, they're contemplating an orb. This guy seems bored here. But anyways, we got a bunch of eyes here, and here is a lot of text about, I think these are all the names of people who supported or kickstarted the game. And here's our credits for the German version, of course, and then the English version. All right, here's our table of contents. So what we're going to do first, we're going to take a look at the table of contents. Then we're going to hop to the character sheet. I always like to look to the character sheet first, just to kind of, get a sense for, can we figure out, and, for me as a enthusiast of the hobby, it's nice to see if I can I figure out what this game is trying to do. So we've got an introduction to the game. We've got 20 pages of basic rules. We've got attributes, checks, attack and defense, skills. Okay, it doesn't look that different. We do have fate points. There's some derived characteristics, conditions, which is apparently different from states. So this doesn't seem too radical. Then we get into a hero creation. It's a 15-step process. There's a bunch of sample characters. So this hero creation process is like 50 pages long. Which edition is this? Copyright 2016. So I don't know what edition that is. Let's see here. This is, first edition was 1984. Second edition was 1988. Third edition was 1993. Fourth edition was 2003 in English. 4.1 edition was apparently only in German. Fifth edition was 2016 English. So this is fifth edition. According to this, it's a streamlined version with modern mechanics published in English. The goal was to make the game more accessible to international audiences. And here we have it. Thank you, Papeski. A little more for your EU-friendly streams. Great content. I got into GMing because of this channel. Go pet the dogs. Well, unfortunately, the dogs have abandoned me today. Otherwise, I would have my dog cam on. But you know what? Thank you for that's awesome.
I am strong.
That one's for you.
Strong. Strong.
Really love the idea of if people get into GMing because of this channel, that you've gone through you've gone through the gauntlet, right? Like I try to make, I don't really do a good job of, I think, of making GMing seem accessible because I make it seem like it's very complicated. And I do think it is, I think it is more complicated than people give it credit for. And I think there's a unfortunate lack of content for people to truly learn how to be a great game master. So it's awesome that you say that you got into GMing because of this channel. So I really appreciate you, and I really appreciate that statement. Thank you so much for that. Mind blown. $5. Don't see and duck people under the races section. Time to move on. Don't see any duck people under the races section. Time to move on. You know what? Mind blown. Actually, let's go back there real quick. We're off to a strong start here, people. And you might think I'm being, ironic. I'm not. Look at these races. Humans, elves, half-elves, and dwarves. All right. Yeah. We don't need all these weird races. Come on. Halflings don't even make sense. How is that character even remotely competing in this kind of location? All right, we got cultures for our three main races, and then we get into our professions, which look to be about classes. Mundane professions, magical, blessed, okay. We have rules for advantage and disadvantage. I'm assuming that this is taken from D&D 5th edition. Maybe this is a new thing. A bunch of stuff about skills, physical skills, social skills. So far, it seems like it's very D&D-like. I mean, we've got advantage, disadvantage, ability checks, skills, couple races, some classes, a bunch of different types of skills, something with fate points, rules for combat, and rules for magic. Oh, there's more. Oh, there's a lot more. Okay. Well, okay. We're getting into this here. Spellcasting has rituals, summoning, alchemy. There's a page on the witch's broom, curses, elven songs. Then there's stuff for the gods, a bunch of, okay, so there's like an implied setting here. Karma, ceremonies, liturgical chants, blessing and sanctified objects. This is a big book, people. Then we have our detailed rules. Is there any water pressure rules? High jumps, visibility, cold, healing, regeneration phase. A bestiary, but that appears to only be 10 pages long, so it can't be that long. Equipment, 20 pages of equipment, a whopping 5 pages for game tips, and then an appendix. And then the character sheet comes in at page 409. So this is a 409-page book. This is the modern, a streamlined version with modern mechanics published in English. The game goal was to make the game more accessible. Wow. The other thing is this doesn't have, and so it's 400 pages, and it doesn't have a bestiary in it. I mean, there's only 9 pages of bestiary, and it doesn't even have a GMing section. Not really. I mean, this is just 5 pages of game tips. Whew. All right. Let's go to the character sheet, page 409. All right, here we go. Character sheet. Okay, here we go. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 stats. Strength, constitution, agility, dexterity, charisma, intelligence, SGC. I don't know. I actually don't know. Okay, so let's keep going here. We've got all sorts of, I'm not going to say it's FBT information, but, FBT information. Age, sex, size, weight, family, date of birth. Date of birth. There's one I don't think I've ever seen on a character sheet before. We've got experience level, and then we have total AP, AP collected, and AP spent. What is FPT? FBT is what I said, Ian. It is a term that the Knights of the Last Call use for fluffy bullshit time. And we say it endearingly, But fluffy bullshit time is basically information about your character, or things that you write down in your character sheet, or things that you're talking about that really don't have anything to do with the mechanics of the game. It's just, eye color is never going to be something that affects the game mechanically. You're just putting it down because you want to, add up a bunch of fluff. So fluff is the opposite of crunch in that regard. What's up, Dirt? Good to see you. Good to see you. Yeah, fluff and flavor is a great way to describe it. Yeah, fluff and flavor. We call it fluffy bullshit time because of this. So it looks like there might be a system here where you earn, they call it AP, but you advancement points maybe. And then you spend it, and then you also have some that you've collected. I like systems that let you spend your XP. I've become a really big fan of that. Hey, Sam. Elves are plants that trolls eat. I've heard it to be so in some other game. Thank you for the 5, what is it, 5 euros? 5 pounds? I can't tell. It's euros. Thank you, Sam. Elves are plants that trolls eat. I have heard it to be so in some other game. I don't know what the other game is that you're talking about, Sam. Thank you though for that. Absolutely, Mickey. I was going to call you Mikey. Thank you. Yeah, no problem, Mickey. Okay. So we've got, these must be the derived attributes that they were talking about. And sure enough, they are. We've got life points, arcane energy, karma points, spirit. Oh, COU must be courage. Toughness, dodge, initiative, movement. Fate points have stat, bonus, max, current. And then we've got a lot of lines for just endless lines for advantages, disadvantages, and general special abilities. So now I'm thinking that advantages and disadvantages isn't just D&D disadvantage and advantage. Okay. Well, there's a lot going on here. By the way, there's 4 columns here. There's the value, there's the bonus, the penalty, the bought, and the max. Okay, here's our skill sheet. And in case we forgot what our attributes are, they're back here at the top of this. And that is what I like to call a long skill list. Oh God, what have you people done to me? Okay. Okay. Just a little bit more. Sheena. Just a little bit more. Okay. We've got physical skills, social skills, nature skills, craft skills, and knowledge skills. We have the check, which apparently uses one of 3 attributes, or maybe all the attributes. No, because look, body control is agility / con. There is an encumbered effect. My favorite, I don't know, maybe that doesn't what that mean, but this says yes, no. This perception says maybe. Oh God, I'm seeing in chat here that all 3 are used. Awesome. Then we have IC, which is rated as A, D, B, or C. No clue what that means. SR is apparently a thing. R is a thing. And then notes for every single skill, which is great because we have, I don't know, 50 skills here. Cloth working, which is different from artistic ability, which is different from earth and craft, which is different from metalworking, which is different from driving. Okay, I thought this was a fantasy game. Okay, yeah, this is super streamlined. We're on page, here we go. IC is the improvement cost, SR is the skill rating, and R equals routine. Then we have boxes for our languages. Then we have a separate box for what written scripts we know. Then there's some sort of matrix table for our attribute modifiers based off of God knows what. Skill points leads to quality level. And there's a third page to our character sheet This is the combat sheet, and as of having the 8 stats wasn't enough, now we have also the 5 derived stats of initiative, spirit, toughness, life points, and I don't even remember what the DO was. Dodge. Okay. Oh, God. Okay, so all those skills, and then we also have skills for different combat techniques. We've got bows, brawling, chain weapons is a thing. Life points, which is like hit points. But wait, we've got, if you've lost a quarter of them, you're at pain +1, half lost, 3/4 lost, 5 or less, 0 or less. Hero is dying. Hero is dying. So we have life points. We're tracking it. Is like it gives us a box which suggests that we're like writing. So if our max is like 50, then we're gonna write like, oh, we have 45, we have 35. We're just gonna keep writing it. For some reason, it doesn't expect that we're gonna erase it, I guess. Then we have our close combat weapons. There's a technique that it uses, which makes sense. Okay, so that technique column links back to the combat technique, the damage bonus, the DP damage penetration, maybe. Okay. Range brackets for the range weapons, ATPA, shield and parrying weapon, which is different from armor. And then we have a separate table for level 1, 2, 3, 4, which includes incapacitated, for confusion, encumbrance, fear, pain, paralysis, rapture, and stupor. And then there's another 10 lines for combat special abilities. My God, that is a long ass character sheet. There's more? Oh my God. Okay. This is a 4-page character sheet. Apparently we're going to be carrying every single thing in the game. Not only is it the item and the weight, it's carried where. We've got our purse, separate line for ducats, silver thalers, haler, hollers, kreutzers, gems, jewelry, other. How much we're carrying in pounds, a table for our animal. Of course, why not a page 5 of our character sheet? Here we go. Here's all our stuff for spells, including another attribute modifier table, properties, cantrips, magical special abilities, and a long list of spells and rituals. Okay, are we done? No! Of course we're not done. What is this, page 7? Page 7 of the character sheet, the liturgical chants and ceremonies. Hopefully you only need one of these. So we've got a whole long list here for what chants you have and what ceremonies you have. And now blessings, another, and by the way, like this is clearly not like some sort of like elegant check a box. It's just lines, empty lines for text, for just written text. Hey, we're done. Well, it's possible that it is that I may have encountered a longer, more complex character sheet before, but not many. Yeah. Okay. I'm afraid now. You've made me afraid. I'm afraid. I'm very afraid. Okay. Well, this is the Dark Eye. This is the introduction here. Nice. Breaking with tradition, we editors decided against completing the game in-house and publishing a final product without running a beta test of the rules. So they apparently tested these rules publicly. That's kind of cool. Chapter 1, Introduction. Got a nice little art here, some potato chips and some dice. And now see, this is already a mistake because look, this is clearly just like one piece of paper for your character sheet when it should be like a thick tome. So what kind of game is this? What is it about? What do you have to do? What do you need to know about the world in which the game is set? And what exactly is a Dark Eye? All right. The Dark Eye is a pen and paper fantasy role-playing game you gather with other gamers to take on a role of an adventurer and explore a strange fantasy world where you solve mysteries and fight orcs, dragons, and other monsters. If you're already okay, so basically a generic role-playing game, but a fantasy role-playing game. If you're familiar with role-playing games on the computer, or a gaming council, you'll see certain things that are similar. Some things are very different, such as what make a pen and paper role-playing game a special experience. Although an adventure follows a certain storyline or plot, your character is mostly free to go wherever you want and do whatever you like. It doesn't matter by which route you clear a dungeon to get to the kidnapped princess, as long as you get there. I don't love that language. It's basically like, yes, it's not a straight railroad, but, you know, you're going where you're going. Okay, if you could find a way to avoid the dungeon entirely, that would also be fine. All right, respect. A pen and paper role-playing game knows no bounds, blah, blah, blah. GM and referee are interchangeable. Where's this lead? It's a cooperative game where players in the group work together to reach the goal of the quest. Do not think of the GM as the group's enemy. Why is this game called The Dark Eye? The game is named after the most intriguing magical artifact it has to offer, the Dark Eyes. Extremely powerful orbs that are very rare and hard to look after. Wizards of eras long ago used them. Oh, so they're Palantir, basically. Wizards of eras long ago used them to look at far distant places, even other worlds, or to glimpse scenes from the distant past. Creating such an artifact calls for a powerful magic and a huge quantity of meteoric iron. When fashioned into a dark eye, the iron takes on the form of an orb, or in very exceptional cases, an eye, hence the name. Okay? The GM has a special role, NPCs, blah, blah, blah. Okay. In the Dark Eye, player characters are usually called heroes. However, this does not mean that they cannot be cunning thieves, smirking scoundrels, or even demons summoning dark mages. In many pre-generated adventures, you play dashing heroes who fight the good fight for law and order, but there are many possible quests for characters with moral codes of a more questionable nature. What is Aventuria? That is the default setting of the Dark Eye, a continent of diverse regions ranging from rainforests and swamps, ruled by lizard folk, and to the mountain kingdoms of the dwarves. The Midden Realm stretches through the heart of Aventuria. It is an empire nominally ruled by the young Empress Rohaya. I don't know how to pronounce that. But in reality, it is controlled by powerful regional lords and ladies. So we have sort of a feudal. So this is very, it's very anti Points of Light. So Points of Light would say, you know, there's no overarching, you know, span of control. This is a fairly developed realm. It's an empire. It's controlled by lords and ladies. There's an empress. There's, you know, chivalrous knights and all this other stuff. So there's the Orc lands. That's a cool name. Orcs are always at war with their neighboring empire and are usually thought to be barbaric, cruel, brutal, and willing to test their strength against anyone stupid enough to challenge to them. Take that, D&D 2024 Monster Manual. We've got our sort of Viking-type people in Thorwall. We've got our underdeveloped kingdoms. Okay, so we've got there's a bunch of different realms here. So this looks to be a fairly well-developed setting. You know, I kind of like the layout of the regions. It's very interesting. Okay, lots of stuff here about the setting. They're very big on the setting here. Not so much about the game itself, but the setting. I mean, we're like on page 10 of the game, and like we've learned more about the regions, you know, the different histories of the different realms and the different regions of Aventuria, and now we're talking about literally the gods of the game. You know, at which at this point in the game, like, I could care less about. So we have got 12 gods plus a nameless 13th god. That's cool. Oh, were we not? The 12 gods weren't enough? Well, here come the demigods. Now, I'm curious. Is RuneQuest European? Lord High Summoner? I didn't think it was. Yes? Question mark. So here's some dragons and some demigods, because why not? Okay. So here's an example of play, and it says it's a gameplay example. And let's see here. Description, text, FBT, 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 FBT.
Stratega tipped $5. It has come to my attention you unfairly gave Summoner a bad tier ranking, despite effectively being a martial with quick and heal. This is a grave injustice.
To be clear, I raised its rating, even though my co-host thought it shouldn't, and I raised it specifically because I said that your dumb, stupid Tangle monster was a complete and total beast. But what we all agreed was that not everybody is strat. And for the most people who are going to play a summoner, they're going to be substandard. Okay? That was the overall assessment. All right? All right. Back to the gameplay example. We haven't seen a single game mechanic. They are just talking in character. Okay. More role-playing, more characters. More characters for this. Hey, look, a check. Okay. They roll dice. Lots more talking. Wow, it's a very involved thing here. Some people can cast spells. They can make skill checks. Fate points. Fate points, or FTP, set heroes apart from average Aventurians. I keep wanting calling it like adventurings. That's a very long one. Blessed ones use karma points. Adventure points is what they use to improve their abilities. Okay. Every game has its rules. Know them or lose. Unnamed oil tycoon from Dallas, Texas. What? Okay. And then some other stuff here that doesn't seem to make any sense. Okay. Oil tycoon. All right. We need to make tests and ability scores. All right. Optional rules. Now and then you'll see stuff in the sidebar that have optional rules. We need paper and pencil. All right. We need dice. We need 20-sided dice and 6-sided dice. Okay. But dice rolls, uses D20, skill checks, and attribute checks. In these cases, rolls of multiple dice are not added together. Instead, each die is compared separately to a particular value. Mishi Knight, yes. An adventurer gets adventure points from adventuring in Adventuria. Yes. We know how dice work. A GM screen, some notepads, modern tech. Okay, got it. All right, checks. This is the most important core rule. Anytime a scene could turn out in a different way, or there's a chance the character may fail, that we could call for a check. Goblins and Edgers, I'm assuming that it is from the TV show Dallas. That is what I'm assuming. Which was on like in the 80s, which is when this game came out. A check essentially means rolling a die, or sometimes several dice, and comparing the result to one or more of the hero's scores. Success generally means the story goes in the direction the hero intends, while failure works against the hero's efforts. However, a failure does not always end the adventurer or leave a hero stuck in a tricky situation. The story may continue, just not necessarily in the hero's venture. Okay, that's good. Only the GM can decide if it's time to make a check. When the outcome of a situation is clear, you shouldn't roll dice. Do not roll merely to see if a character is able to cook soup. Makes sense? In the Dark Eye, you always roll one or more d20s for checks. A check succeeds on any result less than or equal to the associated score. Okay, so it's a d20 roll under. The GM calls for a check. The relevant score is 13. The player rolls a d20. If in general, it keeps saying in general, so there must be exceptions. If the roll is 13 or less, the check succeeds. On a roll of 14 or more, the roll fails. Several factors will modify these chances, as you will see. Okay. Attributes. Here we go. Attributes are a character things, basic foundations. They have 8 attributes. Courage. Okay. Sagacity. I mean, it's like, obviously, it's like how smart you are, but I don't know. I don't really know how to pronounce that word. Sagacity? Sagacity? Yeah, I guess it's sagacity. Yeah, sagacity. Sagacity. I don't know if it's like because it's like age. So it's like, is it sagacity or is it like sagacity? That's what I don't know how to pronounce. I've read it before. I've just never really think I've said it before. Oh, you think it's a hard G? I don't know. A sec.
Sagacity.
It is a hard G. Okay.
Sagacity. Sagacity.
All right. Sagacity.
Sagacity.
All right. Well, there we go. We all learned something new today. Thank you, Google.
Sagacity.
All right. Sagacity. Okay. Courage. Sagacity. Intuition. Okay. So int is not intelligence. It is. So sagacity is our sort of intelligence. Intuition is sort of our wisdom. Int is wisdom. Not confusing at all. Now, sagacious, I've seen many times, but sagacity I've never heard. You're saying Google mispronounced it? All right. It sounds like when your pants are baggy in the back. So charisma, dexterity, agility, constitution, and strength. The first 4 are mental. The other 4 are physical attributes. You know what? In a world where everyone's going to 4 attributes, let's go to 8. The higher, the better. It's a D20 thing. So yeah, so you're going to start from 8 to 14. But of course, higher is better because we're trying to roll under. Special rules always trump core rules. Great to know. Courage is your bravery and determination. Resist magical spells and liturgical chants. Stand tall in the face of danger. Component is a faith. Sagacity represents knowledge, logic, and analytically thinking. Intuition represents empathy and hunches, coping with stress. Charisma, personal magnetism, charm, and persuasiveness. Dexterity, hand-eye coordination. Agility is bodily finesse, reflexes, speed. Constitution, stamina, strength, raw muscle power, and how well you can use those muscles. You roll attribute checks on a 1d20, the score being tested, and we make it. So, hey, make a sagacity check. Your sagacity is 15. If you roll 15 or lower, you succeed. Okay? Attribute checks are used when the outcome of a search situation is uncertain and no other skill seems appropriate. Circumstance. So I like roll under because they're simple. But here we go. We get attributes. Circumstances can make attribute checks more or less difficult. This is where Break ran into some problems. The modifier affects one check only. A bonus is indicated by a plus sign, while a penalty uses a minus sign. A check of courage +3 means the hero's courage temporarily raises by 3 points, while a sagacity check -5 lowers the character's sagacity by 5 points. Now, was that so hard? No. See? Look. This is great. This is one sentence and everything makes perfect sense and everybody knows what you need to roll on a D20 and you don't complicate the roll under. It's not hard, people. Apparently the Dark Eye's been doing it for 30 years. So, 40 years. Yeah. So anyways, this is how it should have been done. Which is fantastic. Now, granted, I still prefer Dragonbane, where you just never modify the attribute and you literally just have to roll under it because it's just like so simple. I mean, if you're going to do this, it's so simple. But if you're going to have modifiers to an attribute roll under system, this is how you do it. Okay. Remember that these actually only apply to the check. They do not actually grow stronger from the circumstances. But and even as a GM, I just feel like that is so natural, right? You just go, like, hey, this is really tough, so you say, hey, make a courage check -5. And you're like, oh, okay. So my attribute goes down by 5 temper. So instead of needing to roll a 15 or less, as because my courage is 15, I have to roll a 10 or less. Now, yes, obviously we're used to modifying the roll, but yeah, I mean, I think if you're playing in this style of system, modifying the DC, which is in this case your attribute, makes a lot more sense. So I think that's fine. I think that's great. That's just a very natural way for me to expect to do this. All right. We have a sidebar here on what your attributes mean. Generally speaking, 7 or less is really bad. 18 or higher is masterly. And then here's some examples of how you might use those modifiers to affect the check difficulty. So, one of the things that people always have a problem with these roll under systems is how do we account for essentially the difficulty of the task, right? Because in a strict roll under system, it's just your chance of succeeding is your chance of succeeding. It doesn't get modified. Dragonbane uses boons and banes. Other games use modifiers. So this game uses modifiers. I think this is a simple, easy to use, very easy to understand. As a game master, I would feel very, very comfortable using this and applying this. But, let's throw in some more terminology because why not? The effective attribute value, or EAV, is a character's attribute value after applying any applicable modifiers, whether adding a bonus or subtracting a penalty. The attribute doesn't change easily, permanently, but it is used for that one check. If the EAV, if a modifier results in an EAV of 0 or less, the check automatically fails. Yes, if something was very easy, no, it's extremely easy. If you roll a d20 and get a nat 1, it is, we get to, third edition is back. We get to confirm. So if you roll a nat 1, it could be a critical success, but you have to make a confirmation roll. If you succeed on the confirmation roll, you achieve a critical success. So it's not enough. You don't have a 5% crit chance. You probably have a 2% crit chance here. I don't know why that's a rule. Now you might say, well, third edition, Derek did that. Yes, it did, but only on weapon attacks. And even then, the whole point was that weapons had threat ranges so that you would threaten a critical hit more often. And then, anyways. But the game also has botches. If you roll a nat 20, you have to roll a second time. And if you fail on that second roll, the tides turn against you and something terrible happens. Would you like more? Here we go. Optional rule. Would you like more criticals and botches in your game? Don't use the confirmation roll. So every 1 is a crit. Every 20 is a botch. As if we didn't read that attribute above. If your EAV goes below 1, you cannot make a check. The D20 is also used in combat situation to use your attack value. To attack with bows, make a check using your ranged combat values to defend against a close combat attack. Roll against either your parry or dodge. So is this player facing rolling? All right, let's maybe see in combat. Then we also have skills. Okay. A skill check consists of 3 linked attribute checks. All the rules above apply except as follows. Every skill, spell, or chant is linked to 3 attributes. The hero must make a check against each of these attributes. The player can roll these checks in any order, or they can make all 3 checks at once using 3d20. But each die must be clearly assigned to one of the 3 attributes. For suggestions on easier ways to roll, see page 22. Each part of a skill check is an attribute check, and the rules for all attribute checks apply. If an EAV ever falls below 1, success is impossible. When making skill checks, the player has a pool of skill points, SP, equal to the skill rating, SR, of the skill in question, which can be spent to adjust failed die rolls into successes, leftover SP determine the QL or degree of success. For example, if the second EAV in a skill check is 12 and the player rolls a 14, the player can spend 2 SP to reduce the roll to a 12 and turn it into a success. I'm going to keep reading before I have my panic attack. Once spent, SP are no longer available to adjust other rolls for that specific skill check. A hero with SR10 starts with 10 SP, and if 6 SP are spent to pass the first roll, only 4 points are left to adjust the remaining 2 roll. Spent SP are not lost forever. When characters use these skills later in the adventure, they get their full amount of SP again. Normally, it does not matter how low a player rolls during a skill check, as success is reward enough. The only exception to this is critical success, which is determined by... Okay, whoa. The only exception to this rule is the critical success, which is determined differently than a critical success for a regular attribute. If you run out of SP while making a skill check, you cannot adjust one or more rolls into a success. You fail the check. It doesn't matter if you spend all SP or are able to save some. If all of your rolls pass, the skill check is successful. However, the more SP you save, the higher your QL, and therefore the better your result. This chart's very helpful. Skills, in quotation marks, which leads to skills, not in quotation marks, but also spells and chants. Okay, let's see if I can figure this out here. So, okay, so, okay. So let's say I'm going to go fishing. Fishing, I would make a dexterity check, an agility check, and a constitution check to fish. I have to pass all 3. And that means that each die has to be assigned to dex, agility, and constitution. But dexterity, agility, and constitution are all different ability scores. So that means that these are all different, essentially all different DCs. So my red dexterity die has to roll under 15. My blue agility die has to run under my agility of 12. And my yellow intuition die, sorry, it's not intelligence. Constitution. Yeah, constitution. My yellow constitution die has to run under my 11 constitution. So I'm going to roll those 3 dice. Each one has to be tracked. Now, those are the ability values, but really what we need is the EAV, which of course means that each of those ability scores could be modified up or down depending on the inherent difficulty of the task. So if this lake was a frozen lake and it's very difficult to fish, maybe the GM says the difficulty is -2. So now I have to take 3 different ability scores, subtract 2 for them, remember those 3 values, roll 3 dice, each one assigned to a different and distinct ability score, and then roll under those. And I have to pass all 3 of them in order to pass the check. However, we get that fishing skill will have an SR, which give us points that we can use to then artificially deduct from the roll in order to bring it down so that we can turn a failure on one or more of these ability checks into a ability check. And then if we pass and we have enough skill points left over because we didn't have to spend them, that determines the quality level of the result of the skill check. Now, those of you who are German or German related or crazy and have played this game, did I get that right? Did I get that right? Roll under is easy. Germans, hold my beer. The less you spend, the better the check. Okay, so having a high skill either gives you consistency or big success. Yeah, that's how I would read it. So if we're really good at fishing, and let's say our SR was, I don't know, 10, then we would roll our check, and assuming we would have a lot of points, if we rolled really well and we don't need to spend them, then we could use all 10 of those points to get an incredible quality level of 4. But if we rolled kind of crappily, we would probably still not fail because we'd have 10 points to modify 3 different D20s into turning them all into success. My only question is, why? Why, God in heaven, are we doing this? What is the fucking point of this? What is going on? Why? But like, why though? But like, why? Like why? Like, why are we doing that? Why? What was the point of that? What is this flowchart? Why is this here? Like, why am I rolling 3 times and then modifying them all? But how is that simulationism? Like, why is fishing involve my constitution? Like, what's going on? They wanted to avoid legal issues with D&D. Gabriel says, I want to know what is the best scenario that gets the most out of that. I mean, and that's for a single skill check. So it's, so someone said, is this a meta currency? No, it's like diegetic, because by being good at the skill, instead of it being a modifier, it's a bank of points that you can use to affect the outcome. But man, why though? Like, I get what it's doing. I just don't understand why. Now, here's how I know I'm being, hooked, because it says skill checks in the fast lane. And I'm like, oh, maybe there's an optional rule to get rid of this. And they go, oh, no, what you should do is assign different D20s to different colors. And then the red die is for the first roll, and a white die is for the second, and the blue die is for the third. That their methodology is like, make sure you color code it. Oh, well, that's terrible. But like, I don't understand. See, okay, here's the thing, Enrif. How is this crunchy? It's not that it's crunchy. This is just complicated, unnecessarily so. You're not really making any choices here. Even spending those points isn't a choice, because if any of the attribute checks fail, then the whole check fails. So if you need to roll, let's just say it was all the same. If you need to roll under a 15, under a 15, under a 15, and you rolled a 16, 18, 16, then you're like, okay, I need to spend 1, 3, and 1. I need to spend 5 of my points. Do I have 5 points? No. Then it fails. Do I have 5 points? Yes. Then I spend them. And then what's left? You're not really making any decisions. So I don't really view this as crunchy. I just view this as complicated, like for no reasons, And that is true, Simon. One of the nice advantages of Roll Under is being able to very quickly understand, hey, look, you can really easily get a gist for what you need to roll. Oh, my attribute's 16. I need to roll a 16 or less. D100 is even better because it literally converts to a straight percentage in that respect. But you get a really easy sense. But I would need some sort of calculator. The fact that you have this random pool of numbers, too, that can affect the number outcome, it's just crazy. Yes, mind blown. That is what I was thinking. It would be much more interesting if it was a partial success where you could get successes with consequences. Like, oh, if you pass 1 of the 3, then you get something. If you pass 2 of the 3, you succeed, but it's just really kind of crappy success. And then if you get all 3, you get like success, right? Right, Ethan, exactly. I know people like to dog on Burning Wheel for being complex in its checks, but at least you're doing it for a point. Like if I'm going to jump through all of these hoops, like I want it to interact with the fiction in a way. I want it to interact with my character. I want it to interact with, a decision that I as the player get to make. That, at least to me, is interesting. Wow. Okay. Not interesting. Okay. Now the Parametheus approach is to have a different colored die for every single attribute. Now I will admit, I like this because now I get to have 8 different colored D20s, and there's part of that just makes me happy. Although, like, how do you not use just like Roy G. Biv here, like Roy G. Biv in white or Roy G. Biv in black? Red, orange, yellow, green, I guess blue, indigo, and then they kind of just combined indigo and violet, and then white and black. What if you're colorblind? Well, get fucked, I guess. Yeah, I like Mindblown's idea too, Pathfinder PhD. That was kind of like my first thought process. I thought that would be great. You need 16 D20. Oh, yeah, you're right. Because are there any that take 3? You're right, because we saw the one skill required like agility, and then like a different attribute. So unless there's any that are 3, you would actually need 2 green dice, 2 black dice, 2 yellow dice, 2 blue dice, 2 white dice, 2 orange dice, 2 red dice, and 2 violet purple dice. You are completely correct. Wow. Well, that is horrible. And again, for no reason. Oh, why are you doing this to me? Don't forget advantage or disadvantage. I mean, somebody has to. Okay. So a skill check is more than just success or failure. It is very important to know how many skill points you have left after a check. The more skill points the heroes can keep, the better the result of the check. And also too, okay, imagine going back to Mindblown's idea, which was great. You have this bank of skill points, right? And what if the success of a check was related to the skill points, right? So in other words, the quality of the check was determining on how many skill ranks or skill points you had in that. The check was just to sort of avoid the bad outcomes. Think of it like the shadow warnings from Trespasser. So when you roll, you have a choice, because if you roll very badly, let's say you fail 2 of the 3 attributes, then you could choose to spend the skill points to make some of those failures into passes to mitigate or to offset the negative downside of the check. But then the quality of the check goes down because you don't have as many skill points. Or you could choose to say, you know what? We need a big result here. I'm going to use all my skill points for quality. I'm going to let those 2 attributes stay failures, and I'm going to take the narrative, the fictional, the mechanical consequences of that bad roll. Right? Does that make sense? Like maybe if you fail all 3 attribute checks, the check is truly a failure. But if you fail 2 of the 3, then it's still a success depending on your skill points, but it is very, very much success at an extreme cost. Like it's very dangerous. It's very deadly. It's going to really hurt your character in a certain way. But you could choose not to spend your skill points because you want to get that result, because you're willing to take the penalty. You're willing to take the L onto yourself in order to get the success, right? And yeah, you could do the same thing for damage. Especially if we made it that the attack roll was like a one and done where it represented the entire fight, right? Like, are you skilled enough to defend yourself and deal damage? Well, I rolled kind of badly. I could choose to do my damage, but then I'm going to take a bunch of damage, or I could choose to offset that and we kind of both do nothing, Right, exactly, Akamos. You could tie it to the attributes. completely correct. Both you could tie to the attributes mechanically and narratively, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be just mechanical. I like the idea of being a manacle, you know? Yeah, not but yes, that works well too as well. Yeah, I think that's a totally reasonable option. Anyways, okay, well, it's not that, so let's move on. If we have skill points left over from a skill check, then that determines the quality level. This determines the effect of the action in the check for spells and liturgical chants. A quality level might change the effect, thus making it stronger or last longer. So makes sense here. And to dagger us further, just to make sure, as with attribute checks, skill checks can have modifiers. A rock face can hold for handholds of good and bad quality. It might be easier to do this. Penalties and bonuses apply to all 3 rolls of a skill check. A bonus raises all linked EAVs by the amount of the bonus, while a penalty lowers all 3 EAVs. At least it's not done on an attribute by attribute basis. I guess we could be thankful for that. And here's again interestingly, the modified skill checks uses a different table than the attribute checks. You remember the attribute checks, I think, used 2, 4, 6, and this uses 1, 3, 5. Interesting. Rule of Cool, salute you. Awesome. I'm curious, Rule of Cool, before you leave, if you haven't already left, are you running Hackmaster or are you running Hackmaster Basic? I'm curious. Like, are you actually using all of the advanced rules from Hackmaster? I'm just curious. Or are you running 4th edition? I assumed you're running 5th, but I'm just curious. All right. Critical success. Just with attributes, you can achieve a critical success. However, you only achieve a critical success if you roll ones on at least 2 of the 3 die rolls. This is called a double 1. And not only does it override a failure of the remaining roll, it means you achieve a better than normal success. Rolling a triple 1, sure, you're right. Let's do a 1 in 8,000 chance. By the way, rolling triple 1s is literally a 1 in 8,000 chance. A somber GD. So we were actually talking about this before we went live. I said, blame it on ChatGPT. I asked ChatGPT, what is Europe's #1 TTRPG? Let me know what. Let me just. Listen. I'm happy to be wrong because I don't actually care. But here is what it said. It said, determining the most popular TTRPG in Europe can vary by country and is influenced by cultural preferences. However, D&D has seen significant growth across Europe. In 2019, sales of D&D products increased in Europe by 65%. In Germany, The Dark Eye has been a dominant TTRPG for decades, often outselling D&D in the German market. In Poland, Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay has been particularly popular, resonating with players due to its dark, low fantasy tone combined with black comedy. Overall, while D&D maintains a strong presence and has experienced significant growth in Europe, regional preferences for other TTRPGs like The Dark Eye in Germany and Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay in Poland highlight the diverse gaming cultures across the continent. So, I don't have any specific stats. I'm sure every country has a very different role, but it's fine. And we already did Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. That is true. I got you. You're slowly introducing the advanced rules. Okay, cool. Because I do want to do, I probably just want to use basic, which is still the count up, to be clear. But I want to do a Hackmaster battle on stream at some point in time, just FYI. Oh, Big Daddy Whoople. What's up? $50. Sir. What is going on? And no message? Come on, Whooplestein. What do you got? Come on. You gotta get, you can't drop $50 and not say something. Thank you ever very much, Whooplestein. That is incredible. Thank you so much. Looks like we're going to be doing another Euro-friendly stream for sure. Thank you, Whooplestein. That is amazing. Let's give him a...
RPG! 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 RPG!
Thank you, Whoople. All right, something. Yes, he's too busy. He's too busy in the northern reaches club. Yes, Whooplestein is single-handedly rewriting Whooplestein is the new Smith for northern reaches season 3. He's creating the list of player GM perks and all the other stuff, which I'm fine with. Dude knows what he's doing, and he's passionate about the game and he's skilled. So you gotta love it. Whooplestein, thank you very much for that very generous super chat, and thanks, buddy. I appreciate. I appreciate the chat tip, but I really appreciate what you're helping out with that NR. I actually got to get caught up. You guys have been posting so much. I actually have really fallen behind and I've been busy. So, but thank you for everything that you do for this channel. Thank you, Whoople. Very nice. Whoople is also memeing about using summoners as enemies with Strat in the Discord. Well, that would explain why. Strat came in here and bitched about the grade we gave summoners. So hey, look at that. Because you need this table. Exactly 1 in 8,000. So they did put it here. That's fantastic. So this entire page could also be called as totally unnecessary. Like you could literally play this game for years and this would never happen. Oh, good God. Skills are either active or inactive. That entire table could have been a parentheses or just not there. Like, or it could have just said, this will never happen. Don't worry about it. Oh my God. Oh, people, I don't think we're going to make it. Holy shit. Skills are either active or inactive. Active skills have a rating of at least 0. Characters cannot make checks with inactive skills. Okay, so this is like trained or untrained. Got it. So some skills can be used no matter what, and some skills need to have points put into it. Okay, that's not the end of the world. Okay. To change an inactive skill into an active skill, you must spend adventure points to raise the skill to rating to 0 or higher. Okay, so you have to put points into it just to make it 0. Okay. All mundane skills start out active, and all spells, rituals, chants, and ceremonies start inactive, but it does depend on your hero's package. Okay, that's totally fine. However, to activate a skill, you must pay its activation costs in adventure points. Okay. This cost varies depending on the complexity of the skill, as indicated by 4 categories: A, B, C, and D. A is relatively easy and therefore inexpensive, while those in D, so the skills all have variable, essentially XP or adventure point costs depending on its relative. Yes, it's hints of shade. You are correct, Keith. Mages and priests may activate additional spells and liturgical chants later in the game. Only characters with the spellcaster advantage can activate spells and rituals, and only characters with the Blessed One advantage can activate chants and ceremonies. Okay. So each skill has a variable determination of how much quote-unquote XP you need in order to level it up. So that is what this IC is. So, for example, ropes is easy at A, whereas willpower is difficult at D. Streetwise, pretty difficult at C. Lots of Bs, which makes a certain amount of sense. Carousing, dancing, kale. I don't even know what that is A. Singing is A. Okay. Different types of checks. The Dark Eye uses different kinds of skill checks. The simple check, the competitive check, the cumulative check. And characters can work together to do group checks. Thank you, Enriff. Jester stuff. Got it. The rules for resolving each type of check differ slightly from the basic rules for check, depending on the circumstances. In some cases, it is even possible to re-roll a check. Hey there, MPD. Welcome. Hey, by the way, remember, just because we're so close to 13,000, I'd love to get it. If you're enjoying this, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Comments and likes will help us get this stream out to more people than would otherwise see it. And if you're interested in getting our channel, make sure to subscribe and ring the bell and click for notifications, because then you'll know when we go live, especially when it's at an odd time like today. And of course, there's our Patreon link in the description below if you want to hang out with all these fun, cool folks from all over the world and talk about RPGs. All right, so somehow this is a skill check. Okay. The simple check is a regular skill check, as explained in the rules above. So the simple check is the one where you roll 3 dice, color-coded, use your skill points to buy down the failure to a success, and then calculate your quality level by a matrix table by how many skill points are left after the resolution of the 3 successes, while checking for double ones, triple ones, double 20s, triple 20s. That's a simple check. But there's a note for that. Retry. The GM decides whether the hero may try again. If so, each attempt suffers a cumulative -1 penalty. The GM also decides how many attempts that they may make. However, if one of the linked attributes drops an EAV to 1 or less, the action fails and the hero gets no more chances to attempt the task at hand. Furthermore, this penalty lasts for 24 hours, and after that time, the hero can start fresh and make another roll at the action without penalty. Now, this is exactly the reason why I love the let it ride rule, which is what Luke Crane calls it, or fun once, which is what Thor and Luke call it in Torchbearer, which is the idea of like you get to make the check once, and then the situation changes and we move on with the narrative. The idea that I could try to fish and then say, well, I failed, so I'm just going to fish again, and then I'm going to fish again, and then I'm going to fish again, and then we're tracking my cumulative fish penalties for this specific skill check. The idea that this is then going to reset tomorrow so that I can keep doing this, like, that is horrible. And I completely agree with Mishi Knight. Retries are the worst. They're banned at my tables in any games. And I know that it is not, quote unquote, simulationist, which is obviously this game is very simulationist. But man, it just makes the game so much better. I mean, and ultimately we're here to do that. So, and Keith was going to mention Let It Ride as well. So yeah, it's just the better way to do things. But here we have PF2 is very, very, very egregious with this. And technically so is D20, D&D 5e and stuff. Now, to be clear, 3rd edition was technically egregious with this, but 3rd edition introduced the greatest rule of all time. And those of you in chat will know this. I'm sure you can spam it in chat if you know what I'm about to say. Because third edition introduced, yes, Keith's on the money, take 20. Basically, they said, look, if the price for failure is so minimal that you could just keep trying it again and again and again, and you have the time to do that, then why are we rolling dice? Just assume that you get 20 and you get the best possible result. Anyways, and if making that check once wasn't fun, I promise you making it again and again and again with increasingly lower risk or chance of success is going to, thing. You fail to understand the thing. Oh, I also would have been looking at it. Yes, exactly. Somebody asked before, do I have a favorite OSR game? Depends on what defines OSR. Technically, my favorite OSR game So technically, my favorite OSR game is just Dungeons and Dragons, BXD&D. So pretty much just the 1981 Moldvay box game, which is my favorite. And if you want a, I guess, technically modernized, cleaned up version of that, you can go with old school Essentials, which is basically the exact same text, just slightly edited and cleaned up. It's actually pretty much straightforward to that. However, so Old School Essentials is great. If you want to go really old school, new school, old school, you can just get Labyrinth Lords. And Labyrinth Lord is basically was the start of one of the first books that came out for the OSR. And it is basically literally just a carbon copy of this. And this is why the OSR originally existed, because these books weren't in print anymore. And so they had to make this, and they realized that through the OGL, they could just copy the rules even from older versions of Dungeons and Dragons. And so I used this for a long time when I didn't want to, damage my little book here. And like even the editing in here is pretty bad because it's like literally almost a carbon copy. But Old School Essentials is just sort of an evolution of this, and it really is the same basic rule set. It's just this is much clearer. They updated the language a little bit, made the tables a little bit make more sense. Outside, so those are like literal retro clones. Outside of that, I mean, I think Shadow Dark is cool. It's simple, it's quick, it's easy. I'm just looking at all the OSR stuff I have. Yeah, probably. I guess if you really want something like that, I would say Shadow Dark is probably pretty good there. Maybe Mythic Bastion Land when it comes out, if you want to consider that OSR. Stop. As a case of comparison, this is just my personal opinion, I do not like DCC. I do not like DCC. Black Sword Hack is also very good. That is true. The Black Hack is good. The White Hack is good. But yeah, I don't like DCC. I almost don't like anything. Well, the thing, yes, you're right. BX is not OSR, but the thing is like the original OSR books, including Osric. Okay, Osric is what started, right, the old school Renaissance, because I mean, obviously that's the whole point of it, right? And it stood for Old School Reference and Index Compilation, and it was literally first edition AD&D reprinted, and that is basically what kind of kicked off the OSR. So the OSR was originally just a reprint of, again, and it was called the Old School Reference. So OSR in Osric, it doesn't stand for Renaissance or it doesn't stand for Revival. It stands for reference. But anyways, I stand back. Boo! What's up, Tundalus? But Into the Odd and Karn are my favorites. Back Mythic Bastionland 2. Yeah. Actually, I got to have dinner with him at Gen Con. It was pretty cool. Yes. In short, yes. Yeah, Chris McDowell's awesome. He's got a great podcast, by the way. You should definitely check out his podcast. Chris McDowell has an incredible podcast. All right, back to this game. This was turning into like all books reviewed part 2. So that's our simple check, but there's a competitive check. Wait a second. Is there like subcategories? Body control jumping. What? Are there like subcategories of the skills? Interesting. Okay. This is a little confusing to me because it says body control jumping because it says application. Anyways, competitive checks. The competitive check allows you to compare two contestants, and the one with the higher quality level wins the check. Oh, no. In the case of a tie, the task either remains undecided or else victory goes to the passive contestant. The passive contestant is the one always reacting to the action. Oh, so it has opposed dice rolls. To be clear, at least you're rolling 3 dice each and then also checking it, but then you're also determining how much quality level points you have behind. If both fail, the passive side wins, but barely, only with quality level 1. So the GM has to roll all these 3 dice too and spend the skill points and do this. How this is written: skill application versus skill application. For example, a competitive check might be stealth hiding versus perception spot. What the fuck is an application? We didn't see anything of this, did we? Prepare food, frying and boiling. What? Okay, what is going on here? Did I miss something? Hold on, I gotta go. I go to the skill chapter here. Skill chapters, applications. Every skill has applications, which are sub areas of the skill. If a skill check involves a certain application, it appears in parentheses, as in perception, spot. This is important in determining whether a hero can use a certain advantage or special ability. A check for perception spot means that the skill check involves the specific application spot. So the advantage, good looks 1, grants a bonus of 1 for checks that use not commerce, but commerce haggling, and not fast talk, but fast talk, hard sell, manipulate, or subterfuge, and not seduction, but seduction, flirting, and seduction, romantic arts. If the player of a hero with good looks must make a check using seduction parties, the bonus doesn't apply because the advantage grants nothing for this application. Oh my God. Wow. Wow. That's rough. Okay. All right. Here's the thing. Like, that's overly specialized. Because not only does this one singular advantage grant you, but it grants you different specializations to different elements of different skills. And so think about it this way. Like, when I go to make, if the GM says I have to make a check, right? If I'm reading my character sheet correctly, and you guys can tell me if I'm wrong here, but if I'm reading my character sheet correctly, the advantages go here on this page. Here. So now I have to know, I have to look through every single advantage to know whether or not I have a bonus to it and what that bonus amount is. And like, that's crazy. Wow. Okay. Moving ahead. Also, why isn't good looks useful for seducing at parties? Because I guess that would be a seducing check. I don't know what a party's check is. No, this is like Chubos. This is like German Chubos. That's like German Chubos. Like Chubos. Chubos and the Dark Eye are like two sides of this different coin. I mean, no, that's German. Okay. This is This is an incredibly German. I could see why they did it, and my impulse would be to do the same if I didn't know shit about playability and effective. Right, Strat. Like, you are completely correct, because this is the thing. Like, obviously, I would hope and pray to God that I would not end up with this. But this is a sort of like deep, like, this is like where you just keep spiraling down and down and down, and you end up with this like incredibly like overwrought game, and you're like, what did I do here? You know? Now I kind of understand why almost all the Germans on Discord play Alchemists in PF2. So what you're saying, IKMOS, is that those all used to be different skills in the older versions of the game? That's crazy. Whew. All right. Well, there's also a cumulative check. And in this case, we have to accumulate enough QLs to pass the test, which means that you just keep spamming the skill and getting QLs until you get to the QL total that you need to do. And you have to accumulate 10 QLs. And if you get to 6 QLs, you at least get a partial success. The GM will decide how many checks will be made, how long the task will take to accomplish, and how much time must pass between the skill checks. These skill check intervals can be defined in rounds, minutes, hours, days, or even weeks. If you are unable to collect 10 QLs after all of your permitted skill checks, then it fails. But if you get 6 QLs, you could potentially get a partial failure. A failed check still imposes a -1 penalty to the next skill check, and it counts towards the total number of checks possible. Penalties are cumulative and modify all successive skill checks until you finish the cumulative check. How it is written: skill application time, as in metalworking, goldsmith, 4 hours. So every 4 hours, we can make a metalworking check, which may or may not be affected if we have a specialty or advantage or disadvantage or some other sort of bonus, which specifically affects the goldsmithing application. And then every 4 hours, we make a check. If we fail the check, it counts as a check, and we get a -1 to all future checks until those cumulative checks are done. We have to get 10 QLs in the requisite amount of time. These are the basic skill checks. Like, we haven't gotten to like combat or magic. The number of permitted checks suggested. So if something, let's say we're making a very beautiful golden bracers. Yes, it is 100% a skill challenge death spiral. It is absolutely a skill challenge death spiral. Yeah, I think I wrote a cumulative check system like that once. Very similar. Just roll 4d11 -24 as dice and a little bit more simulation. I mean, Satir, you know, the crazy thing is, it is. I mean, there are probably some basic principles are the same, but you are right. Goldsmithing is different to ironsmithing. I mean, there might be, again, some base similarities, but I don't care. In my RPG, I just don't care. Obviously, the Germans do. So, 7, well, you know, this is a difficult task. You have 5 checks to get 10 QLs to make this golden bangle. I doubt it. I don't know. I don't know anything about goldsmithing, so. Okay. Group checks. Some challenges are beyond the abilities of a single hero. Instead, a group of heroes must achieve something, such as extreme feat of strength, pushing down a huge stone, or breaking down a massive door, rowing a dinghy. This is called a group checks. Group checks can also be competitive or cumulative, but never simple. If only life were. In group checks, add up the combined QL of all participating players. Not all tasks can benefit from an infinite number of characters, which is a classic problem, to have infinite number of characters. All rules for individual skill checks apply, including botches and this. Why are there no simple group checks? I mean, come on, I want them. What about cumulative group checks using optional rule for cumulative group checks using multiple skills? Oh my God. When do I use the checks? Yada, yada, yada. Okay, here we go. Life points, these are the derived characteristics. So these come from our character. So life points are our physical health. We lose them due to damage from weapons or from falling or being poisoned or suffering illness. When they go to 0 or less, we are dying. We recover them via rest, magic, or potions, or receiving treatment. Arcane energy, AE, is a mystical power that enables heroes to cast magical spells. Each spell costs a certain amount of AE, and again, we recover these through rest and magical potions. KP, karma points, these are used for divine magic. Spirit is a measure of a hero's resistance to illnesses, magical domination, and certain poisons. It is a passive characteristic used as a modifier for certain skill checks. A negative value is bad for the hero, since mages or priests trying to dominate the character may use it as a bonus to their magic checks. Accordingly, a high positive value acts as a penalty for possible dominators. You know, they figured out a way to do it, folks. We've got positive bonuses as negative penalties, and we've got negative penalties as positive bonuses. Heyo, Omniscitoad coming in.
Omniscitoad tipped $13. It's a lock-in. Keep the party in the dungeon.
There we go. Omniscitoad, fantastic. We're going to do some more dungeon stuff, along with another EU-friendly stream. Maybe we'll do an EU-friendly dungeon stream. Thank you, Omniscitoad. That's awesome. Thank you, everybody, for the incredible support today. That's been amazing. Awesome. So fun. Very well-timed Final Fantasy Victory Fair. Toughness is the same as Spirit, but it's for physical resistance to poisons. Not, by the way, certain poisons are Spirit, but other poisons are Toughness. Spirit measures your resistance to illnesses. Toughness is the character's physical resistance to illnesses. Like Spirit, Toughness is a passive characteristic that modifies certain checks. Dodge. This comes into play whenever you try to avoid rolling or falling rocks or jump behind cover or evade the attacks of an armed foe when unarmed. Initiative is your reaction speed and ability to move quickly. Movement, how far you can move. And fate points, just that little bit of extra. Fate points. The age of heroes is here. A select few are chosen by fate to do great deeds. Adventurers may use fate points to influence fate to their liking. The more fate points you can collect, the more likely they can bend fate to their will. So after all of these simulationist mechanics, we get meta currency to make it more doable. But look at that. They say you should use coins, small glass beads, plastic tokens, or some of our we recommend poker chips, which is what I always use. They start with 3 fate points. The luck advantage and the bad luck disadvantage modify the maximum amount that you can have. Heroes that spend fate points must fulfill certain conditions to get them back. You can never have more than your maximum. They can influence the outcome of a situation, allowing you to re-roll a failed check or act faster than everyone else. You may only spend 1 fate point per check. However, it is possible to spend a fate point to act first, then spend 1 to ignore all conditions, and spend yet another 1 to re-roll a failed check. Other possibilities include strengthening your defense, raising the quality level of a success, or re-rolling damage. But remember, you can only spend 1 fate point per check. Here's how you can do it. We can act first. We can get +4 bonuses to our defenses. As a side effect, this option raises the number of defense. Oh my God, this game uses active defenses. Oh my God, it uses active defense. That means they're rolling and we're rolling every time that they attack. And now, after doing all of that rigmarole, including the penalties and subtracting the skill points in order to achieve quadruple goal, you also get to just re-roll if you have fate points. Well, you start with 0 quality levels. You have to. Well said, Mark. Oh God, Carl says, don't forget the weapon comparison stats. Carl, don't hurt me, Carl. Don't hurt me, Carl. Sheena says, indeed, Knights of Last Call, it is an active defense like making a save or roll every attack instead of just having a fixed armor class. Google. All right, let me Google this here. It's not in English. I see a bunch of pictures of cats. Is this what I'm supposed to be looking at? A bunch of pictures of cats. Lugs, why are we talking about PF2? We're talking about the Dark Eye, Lugs. Yes, the Dark Cat. All right. Somehow, maybe that makes it better. Okay, how do we regain fate points? Well, we get them at the start of the session. We get them at the end of an act. We get them at the end of an adventure. We get them if we do a heroic deed. All right, cool. Conditions. They impose a penalty based on the total number of condition levels to every check that you make. A character could suffer from multiple conditions. For example, an inebriated villager is suffering 2 levels of the condition stupor and is almost too drunk to walk a straight line. If a thief hits him in the back of the head with a club, he might suffer a 3rd level of stupor. And if the knock on his head is serious, it might impose a level to pain. Accumulated condition levels like this can get nasty quickly. Death spiral. If you collect more than 5 levels of conditions, the -5 penalty persists until your total number of conditions drops below 5. So it sounds like 5 is the max. High levels of certain conditions impose a state called incapacitated. If you accumulate 8 or more levels of conditions in total, you reach a state of incapacitated, even if no single condition has reached a level of IV. The answer, EU Arta, is all of them. All of them. We're just all of them. How many are we calculating? All of them. Okay, so just to be clear, you calculate them all individually, then you sum them up, but then there's a max. So, for example, a hero suffers 2 levels of stupor, 2 levels of fear, and 2 levels of pain, which is a total of 6 levels of condition. Ergo, their penalty is -5, because that's the maximum penalty for conditions. 1 level of fear goes away after 5 minutes, but then the hero continues to suffer -5 penalty to all checks until another condition level goes away, at which point the total condition penalty drops again. Also, giant turtle goddess of fate. Confusion is our first condition. Certain drugs, poisons, injuries, illnesses, spells, demonic powers, and even a creature called the Canarian butterfly can all gain you the conditions of confused. The duration for this condition is given in the description of the respective cause. Remove a level of condition every hour, unless directed otherwise. Ikemos, thank you for the $5 or €5 super chat. There's another untranslated German RPG called Splittermond. DSA-ish with Hackmaster-like tick initiative, but with a really nice Foundry implementation. Oh, there you go. Fantastic, Ikemos. That's what I want. That's just what I want. I want cats with Hackmaster initiative and a great VTT. And you have to adjust hourly. Now, to be clear, EU Arta, you have to adjust confusion hourly. I believe you adjust fear every 5 minutes from what we've read. But confusion is going to be a penalty to checks. But confusion, remember, if we have 8 or more points of conditions, we become incapacitated. However, if we ever reach 4 levels of confusion, we automatically become incapacitated. And additionally, if we're very confused, not only do we have a -3 to all checks, but any complex actions like spellcasting become impossible. There's also the encumbrance condition. This can affect us, and encumbrance goes away when we discard this excess weight. Remember, when calculating encumbrance due to load, remember to ignore the weight of the hero's armor, which is already factored into its encumbrance value. So we can see here these are the different types of armor you could wear, its encumbrance level, and any additional penalties. And here is our encumbrance chart. So when you're mildly encumbered, not only do you get -1 to all skill checks, you also get a -1 to attack, defense, initiative, and move, so on and so forth. And if you get to 4, you can't do anything but set down the weight and rest. All right, here's fear. Now, fear is the same thing. 1, 2, 3, incapacitated, but this goes away every 5 minutes. So confusion every 1 hour. Fear every 5 minutes. Encumbrance whenever you set stuff down. And remember, your load is different from your armor, which has a built-in encumbrance level to it, and thus doesn't track its weight separately. Or they do track it separately. So you have to calculate your weight different from your armor, and then I imagine you would add together the total encumbrance levels, one derived from your specific armor, and then the other one from your other thing. Additionally, this armor can also include an additional penalty above and beyond the encumbrance level penalty because of the additional penalty here. Scale, leather, and heavy winter clothing. Yes. Pain. Pain makes us incapacitated at -4. However, this is also checks, but it also affects our movement. How often does pain go away? However, wait a second. We suffer the pain condition from certain magical spells, but we can also suffer pain as we lose life points. So we gain a level of pain every time we lose 25% of our life points. Thus, a hero gains a level of pain at 75% LP, 50% LP, and 25% LP. Heroes gain the 4th level of pain when their LP drops to 5 or lower. So it's 75%, 50%, 25%, and then not relative, absolute 5 or less. To remain active when suffering from 4 levels of pain, it says incapacitated -4. But if we make a self-control, stay conscious check, but with the penalty of -4, we can remain active. And when we heal, a level of pain goes every time we go above these benchmarks of 5, not percent, 5 total, 25%, 50%, and 75%. So that's very clear. So, okay. Look, we're remembering this. Confusion every hour. Encumbrance when you put the weight down. Fear every 5 minutes. Pain as you heal back up. Paralysis is also every hour. Now, what's interesting about this is we have 4 levels of paralysis. Slight, stiff, hardly to move, unable to move. -1 checks, but only to those involving movement or speech, also reducing our movement by 25%, 50%, 75%, and then unable to move at all. But in this case, the penalty is not to all checks, only those involving movement or speech. What about when our blessed ones use large numbers of KPs in a short period of time? They acquire the rapture condition. This also goes down by the hour. Basically, you're just so jazzed up from casting a spell. -1 to all skill checks that are not agreeable to the Blessed One's God. But at levels 2s and 3s, we actually get bonuses to skill checks and spell checks that are agreeable to the Blessed One's gods and -3. Are they all 4? They do appear to be all 4. Now we finally get to stupor. Remove 1 level of stupor for every 3 hours of rest. So we got 1 hour, 5 minutes, put it down, and now 3 hours. We have now those are the conditions. Okay. If we go to our character sheet, I believe we can see those listed probably on the combat subchapter. Yes. No, maybe. Yes. Here's our condition matrix. Now we understand the condition matrix. So we're tracking confusion, encumbrance, fear, pain, paralysis, rapture, and stupor. And let's see if we can do it. Confusion, every hour. Encumbrance, when you put it down. Fear, every 5 minutes. Pain, when you recover your life points. Paralysis, every hour. Rapture, every hour. Stupor, every 3 hours. We got it. All right. So those are the conditions. These are the states. States don't have levels. They're either on you or they don't. So in addition to all of those conditions, which stack up, we can also be blind, bloodlust, bound, burning, cramped, deaf, diseased, immobilized, incapacitated, invisible, mute, poisoned, prone, surprised, and unconscious. There you go. I'm not going to read these. Hey, we did it. We made it through the basic rules of the game. It only took 2 hours. Oh, God, help me. Right. We have stackable condition. No. We have stackable conditions, and then we have non-stackable states. Oh, Mark, I'm not even being facetious here, buddy. Those are literally called the basic rules. There's also a section called the detailed rules. So we just did the basic rules. Hey, thank you, Anonymous.
Anonymous tipped $5. Didn't you say that you like managing multiple resources? This game took me very seriously with its conditions mechanics.
Here's the thing, okay? There is a small part of me that actually kind of likes this idea of counting the conditions. For example, trespasser, right? Do we have a trespasser character sheet? Trespasser, which we did the other day, right? It tracks the states, okay? Which it uses all of these, just add or subtract from a value. They add or subtract to your accuracy. They add or subtract from your guard, which is like your defense. They add or subtract from how much damage you take. They add or subtract to your initiative. They add or subtract how much damage you deal. They add or subtract to how much hit points you're gaining each turn, right? So it's all just tracked with numbers, and these just go up and down. And if you gain, and then you can't have both at the same time. So I actually like that system. In fact, all things being even, I actually kind of like the conditions. I don't like that they all go on different timers, and I don't like that all this, but it's fundamentally, actually, it's a fairly, and there's some weird wonkiness because certain checks apply only to certain types of actions, which is kind of annoying. But fundamentally, I'm okay with it. Where I lose it is when you start talking about, then you've got, and all of these blind, bloodlust, bound, all the different states have different rules, right? They all have unique rules associated with them. And that's where I'm just like, blah. Like if you're cramped, the penalty or modifier depends on the type of weapon or shield you're using. Like I just don't want to look that up. So I actually don't mind the conditions. I really just don't like it in the States. And even then, the conditions is still a bit, much. But yeah, overall, I don't mind it. Okay. Well, that took a long time. So fundamentally, let's say we'll kind of quickly look at what is involved in making a character. So you decide what kind of character you want to be. You choose what experience level you're going to start at. You choose your race, your culture, which we know is only 4 races, dwarf, elf, and human, basically. We then spend points to allocate them to our attributes, right? We have 8 attributes. We choose our profession, which is our class. We choose advantages and disadvantages, which we know are terrible. Thank you, Mark.
Mark T tipped $40. This is for the adult beverages you will need after.
For sure. Yeah, maybe there's a bar in my future after this. Actually, no, I've got Torchbearer stuff to prep. I've got a Fabula Ultima game in the works. I need to be thinking about Dragonbane so I can work on Dragontide. I need to catch up with NR Season 3 stuff so we can get another awesome season of Northern Reaches, Pathfinder 2E post-remaster action. Are there any other RPGs I'm thinking about right now? Fabula Ultima, Dragonbane, Torchbearer, Pathfinder 2nd Edition. That's it right now, primarily. But thank you, Mark T. I appreciate you appreciating me. There is no pug person in this game, Whipplestein. Pathfinder 2nd Edition has a pug person. You know that. Yeah, listen, here. Hold a sec. What did Bob send me? Bob sent me. Let me read this to you. Bob sent me. Bob's like my project manager. Okay. Okay. Tuesday. Let's see here. Derek needs to work on short form recap video summaries. Derek needs to do the AI audio link to Bob. Derek needs to work on NR Season 3. Derek needs to work on Dragon Tide. Derek needs to run Torchbearer, progress developing for Foundry Torchbearer, new conflict cards for Torchbearer, get the Sesh bot updated. We did the Sesh bot. We got that done. Future, the initiative order, YouTube ideas, layout, guests, etc. Pick a movie date for our next movie night date for our next movies. Do raffles, another bout of ticket raffles, back burner stuff, NightCon, and potentially more PDFs and zines. So that's my list from my not my job. That's from my YouTube channel. Are you going to play a Fabula campaign? Simon, we are playing a Fabula Ultimate campaign. However, Simon, it is our home game. So it is unlikely that is going to be something that we broadcast on the channel. It might be something that I talk about in the channel, and maybe I can share different details, maybe do like a fun like update, and spend, but but yeah. But we are running a Fabula Ultimate campaign for our home game. We're just figuring out some of the details of it. We had like a session 0. We talked about like what we want to do. We did some collaborative world building, blah, 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 blah. But it's our home game, and it's nice to not always have like the microphones and the streaming and all that other stuff. Yeah. Hannah says, this was my first RPG. No RPG I've ever read seemed complicated after this. This is true. The Buddha says, if the first road you walk is the most difficult, then all other roads will seem simple. Fantastic. How in the world do you prep all that? Well, Lugs, I don't always get to all of it. That's the answer. Sometimes I don't, and stuff gets pended, and stuff takes a while to get launched. I mean, there's a reason why Dragon Tide was, we started talking about it in, the end of summer, and now it's February and it still hasn't launched yet. If you ever did do an AP of FU, I would die of excitement. Well, okay. Let me share, like, I shared this with my patrons, but like, we were joking around as we're talking about our session 0, and like, this is the kind of progression that you can get in with our kind of game. And Smith wanted to be a floralist, and he wrote it as like flowerist. And I wrote, it's floralist. And Smith said, no, I'm a florist, a flowerist. I only grow wheat, which uses the floralist mechanic. Yes, but I only use flour. And then Cass says, maybe you just hate a specific baking ingredient. Maybe flour killed your whole family. And then I said, and Smith said, yes, it was imperial flour at that. And why? And I said, gluten allergies. And he laughs. And so then we made a final boss battle of the Lord of Harvests, who is going to be the big bad evil guy of our campaign, who of course is the Lord of Flowers, or the Lord of Harvest. And this is just an indication of how things can just quickly get, out of pocket. And, so here's our Lord of Harvests. Fools, you scoff at my power, blind to the truth that has ruled this world since time immemorial. It is not steel nor sorcery that bends nations to their knees. It is wheat, the golden tide that sways in the fields, the lifeblood of civilization itself. For centuries, kings have built their empires on its bounty, and without it, the people crumble like dry, brittle husks. Flour, the sacred dust of the earth, transforms the weak into the strong, the starving into the satisfied. It binds all things together, just as gluten binds the very fabric of your pathetic existence. You curse its name, you call it a scourge, but know this. Every loaf of bread, every feast, every morsel of sustenance has been a gift from me, and now I shall twist that gift into a curse. With but a whisper, the fields shall wither, the mills shall grind to a halt, and the world shall choke on its hunger. Without me, there will be no bread, no sustenance, no future. Kneel before the Lord of the harvest, and perhaps, just perhaps, I shall spare you a final, merciful crumb. And see, just like that, our Fabulous Ultimate game became about the Lord of Harvests. Anyways, moving on. Nice Pathfinder. Looks like you separate out the wheat from the chaff. Oh well, it got more crazy after that. Yes, there was a Lord Baguette joke. Yes. Well, the joke was that the boss was going to have 3 phases, and phase 1 is wheat, phase 2 is flour, and phase 3 is French baguette. Right, and that's when he becomes his final form, which is Lord Baguette. Because in his first form is wheat, and then his second form is like a gaseous cloud of flour, and then his third final form is he gets turned into Lord Baguette. And it was that, and then of course Smith was like, but it has to be in space because it's it's a JRPG, so you have to fight the Lord of Harvest in space, and then that led to Smith said, my wheat will have so many preservatives, it will survive the vacuum of space. And Smith said, obviously, a supreme villain final confrontation with the Lord of Harvest will be in space. And so then the Lord of Harvest was like, fools, do you think the power of wheat was confined to your pitiful planet? That the dominion of flour and gluten could be contained by mere gravity and soil? No, the final frontier will always be mine to claim. Behold, the celestial granary, my ultimate creation. Here, in the cold void of space, I have forged a station of infinite silos where the last reserves of the universe's grain are stored beyond all reach. Here, I have perfected the ultimate leavening, an ethereal bread beyond all mortal comprehension, risen by the cosmic forces of the stars themselves. The star-born loaf shall become the sustenance of a new world, and only those who swear fealty to me shall taste of its divine crumb. But for you, there shall be nothing. No fields, no bread, no salvation, only the cold, airless, breadless abyss. Your bodies shall drift among the shattered remnants of the last harvest, and you will know despair as only true hunger gnaws at your souls. Now come and face me here in the bakery of the gods. Try to fight, try to resist, but you will find that in the absence of gravity, here floating among the stars, even your feeble strength cannot escape the binding embrace of gluten. Cue Latin music. And then I used ChatGPT to create a Latin-based, sort of one-winged angel for Panis Ultimus, the final bread, a Latin chant of divine wheat-based terror sung by a choir as the Lord of the Harvest ascends to cosmic power. And then we've got some some Latin chanting. Gluten regnit, panis surgit, dominus missus victor est, panis ultimus aeternum, the final bread, eternal. So anyways, that's what you would get with a Fabula Ultima campaign with the Knights of Last Call. In case you missed our Root campaign or our Rise of the Rudelords campaign. Okay. Back to the character sheets. So we allocate attributes, we choose professions, we choose advantages and disadvantages, and we improve abilities. Then we calculate our combat technique values, probably called CTVs. Then we choose our special abilities. Then we review our choices, because God knows we made a lot of them. Then we calculate our derived characteristics, which we know are life points, spirit, and endurance, endurance, karma, magic, power, I don't know. Then we buy our equipment. Then we choose an age. And then we give our hero a name. So first we decide what kind of character we want to make. Great, cool, that's easy. We choose an experience level, or EL. This determines how many APs you have to create your character. You can discuss ELs. You can start very low. You can start very high level. So that's kind of cool. Very simple. Regardless of EL, heroes may spend a maximum of 80 AP on advantages and may gain up to 80 AP from disadvantage. Oh, so it's a perks flaws system where you gain disadvantages so that you gain more AP so that you can buy more advantages. Ooh, Pathfinder, that's a good one too. Sounds like you leavened the playing field. Fantastic. So typical Dark Eye characters. Smenden with the 2 pounds. 2 pounds says for the soliloquies. Smenden, thank you. Technically, they're monologues, right? This is the Lord of Harvest monologuing about the ascendancy of the star-born loaf. Can you imagine here in the celestial granary, right? I have taken all of the sun's energies, not to be wasted on your pitiful planet, but here to only grow the ultimate wheat. Thank you, Silver Wolf.
Silver Wolf tipped $10. Gonna go feed my dogs now. This is like an MMORPG. I think I'll play some nice pick me later.
Nick, that sounds amazing. Silver Wolf, thank you so much for that tip. That sounds awesome and incredible. Some Beck Me would be incredible, and I would be very very much wanting to join you rather than playing this game. Thank you, Silver Wolf, for the tip, and go take care of your business, sir. Thank you for the tip. That's very generous of you. So we typically start with maximum scores of 14, 10, 12, 3 FTP, and our attribute total cannot exceed 100. Also, they cannot spend more than 80 points. You have to spend 1,100 adventure points to make your character. That's fucking nuts. Oh my God. Oh, that was good. Here we go. We should go legendary and start with 2,100 adventure points and our maximums. Oh boy. Here's our races and how they affect things. The cultural package will give you some bonuses to your skills, and it costs a certain number of, we only have 1,100. So if you want to be a Bornlander, you got to subtract 18. You're only going to have 1,088 left. 1,082 left. Boy, you got to think twice. I wanted to be a Fajarning, but that's 33 AP. Being a dwarf costs 61 AP. Oh my God, it does. You know what? Respect on the dwarf for being 61. Not 60. Not 62. 61. Right? Balance is all things should be. Finally, the dwarves get their place of honor and power. Power overwhelming. All right. Well, we had 1,100. We're obviously going to be a dwarf, so now we only have 1,039 to go. You know what? Fuck it. We will be a Fajarning, I guess. I don't know. Because all of this makes sense to me, because obviously I know all of this. I mean, it's literally a result of like 40 levels or 40 years of playtesting. Simon, yes, if this is what you care about, if this is what you want, then this is exactly what you're going to get, and you'll love every minute of it. So here's all our cultural AP costs. Here's an example distribution of 100 attribute points. So the points, every point up to 14 costs 15, 15 costs 30, 16 costs 45, 17 costs 60, 18 costs 75, 19 costs 90. But you remember, you have to stay below your maximum, which is determined by your experience level and modified by your race. And your attributes can only add up to 100 total. So here's a bunch of different ways that you could add up to 100 total. Like A adds up to 100 total, and it costs 540 AP. This also adds up to 100, but you have one at 15, so it's 555 AP. And then this is they all add up to 80, but you have two at 15, which means you have to have some lowers because they can only cost up to 100. But this costs 570 AP. Then we choose a profession. Oh my God, my brain is melting. So the profession package gives you points for skills, magic users get cantrip, liturgical chance if you're a blessed one, special abilities, points for combat techniques. They also list suggestions for typical advantages and disadvantages. You can only choose it if you meet the qualification. For example, Louisa studies the game values for the rogue profession and looks into the cat burglar rogue variant. This is almost exactly what she wanted. Her heroine meets the profession's requirement of courage 12 and intuition 12. She pays the 228 AP listed for the cat burglar variant and notes down the relevant combat techniques, special abilities, and skills of the cat burglar rogue variant, which include climbing 7, body control 2, self-control 2, perception 4, pickpocket 2, stealth 5, carousing 4, seduction 3, streetwise 7, empathy 4, fast talk 4, disguise 2, willpower 4, orienting 4, gambling 2, religious 2, math 2, law 3, myth and legend 3, picklock 7, combat techniques, daggers 10, brawling 12, crossbows or thrown weapons at 10 instead of 6. She decides to take thrown weapons. Languages and literacy for 6 AP, skill specialization, streetwise. At this point, their AP balances are as follows. Louisa only has 332 AP left. Chris has 262, and Sarah 271. Then we have to choose all our advantages and disadvantages. And of course, remember, the advantages give you bonuses. The disadvantages give you points back. And we've got a lot. So these are like feats. Afraid of, and this is some classic GURPS min-maxing your flaws, you know. Hey, I'm gonna take colorblind. Oh, look at them. Look at them from preventing people from cheating. You can't take colorblind and blind because people would you have a bad habit. Susceptible to cold, peat, disease, and of course they have different levels. I'm assuming that these are all described somewhere. Yeah, there's chapter 7. So here's where they're all described. They all have different effects, of course. For example, if you have contortionist, you get bonuses to body control acrobatics and body control squirm. So if you're not making a body control squirm check, the GM goes, this is more of a body control squeeze check. And the player goes, oh, damn. I thought my contortionist could help me, but it only helps me with squirm, not with squeeze. Yep, they're two separate things. Sorry. What did Goblin Sandra say? If you take colorblind, you can't see the color of the dice. You just have to guess. Okay. Where else are we? 15 steps. We got to get through this. By the way, Aldark, I will never forgive you for this ever. I'm gonna go on to pay. I'm going after this is done. I'm going onto the Discord. I'm checking who voted for this, and I'm not gonna ban you, but you're gonna get timed out or something. Now we've done all that. Now we can improve our abilities. We just took abilities. Now we can improve them by spending remaining AP. Remember, you have to check your code of improvement classification, A, B, C, D, or E. You have to pay for them all. And here's that if you want to activate, if you want to get it to 0, which gives you no bonus but allows you to use it, it costs this many points. And then for 1 to 12, depending on the thing, it's 1, 2, 3, or 4 points per level, 13, 14, 15, 16, yada, 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 yada. So we can improve our skills after that. Then we calculate our combat techniques. Your hero's attack rating equals the skill rating of your combat technique of your weapon, modified by your hero's courage. For every 3 points above 8, raise the attack value by 1. Simple, easy, clear. Parry, have the skill rating of the combat technique for that weapon, and then apply a modifier for that technique's primary attribute as follows. Add +1 to your parry for every 3 full attribute points above 8 for that attribute, which is tied to the parry, which is tied to the weapon, which is tied to the combat technique for that primary attribute for that weapon. Note, can't parry with chain weapons or ranged weapons. Lastly, your range combat, RC value, is the skill rating of your range combat technique modified by your dexterity. Again, +1 for every full 3 attribute points above 8. For more, see Chapter 9. And here we go. Bows are tough. Fencing weapons are tough. Impact weapons are tough. Chain weapons are tough. Apparently, crossbows, daggers, lances, and brawling are easy. Oh, wait, we have more. Shields are tough, swords are tough, polearms are tough, thrown weapons easy, two-handed impact weapons, which is different from two-handed swords. And here's our little reminder of how to calculate AT, PA, and RC. And of course, we can also spend points here. Also, decide if you're left or right-handed. And lastly, choose special abilities. You've had a chance now to choose advantages, disadvantages. You can now select a number of special abilities, which are purchased for a fixed number of AP and cannot be raised. You either have them or you don't. So these are truly like feats. So you could have cheating, fisher, foxian, gatherer, heraldry, leader, mimicry, suppress pain, improve attack, improved attribute, improved dodge, magical signs, tradition elf, tradition witch, staff enhancements, okay, karma abilities, combat abilities, catch blade, combat reflexes, cross block, deadly thrust, defensive posture, disarm, feint 1, feint 2, feint 3, forceful blow 1, forceful blow 2, forceful blow 3, improved dodge 1, improved dodge shoot, improved dodge 3. Precise throw, quick load, sweep, tilt, takedown 2, weapon, combat. Then we review our choices. At this point, you may find you have some AP. Perhaps you need to go back and do the whole thing again. And you can even save some AP if you want to. Then you calculate our derived statistics. Life points is 2 times base from race plus 2x constitution, plus or minus points from advantages or disadvantages. Arcane energy is for your spellcasting. Karma points are for your blessed ones. Spirit is your base. Spirit from your race plus your courage, sagacity, plus intuition divided by 6. And don't forget your PEMDAS. And then plus or minus advantages or disadvantages. So it's not even the average of courage, sagacity, and intuition. It's the average divided by 2. Toughness is constitution plus strength divided by 6 plus base toughness from race plus or minus advantages or disadvantages. Dodge is a simple agility divided by 2. Initiative is courage plus agility divided by 2. Movement is from your race. And now we have all of our base statistics. Now we have to buy equipment. We start off with 750 silvers, which could be advantaged or disadvantaged if you're rich or poor. And then you spend stuff on equipment. Then we choose our starting age. Oh, and we have a date of birth because don't forget about the die of the gods. A special die is available that you can roll in place of a d20 when rolling for a birth month. Oh. It's just a d12. It does not appear to be a level-based system at Kamos. Here's our starting age, random. Here's our random birth month. And here's our random birthday. And then we give our character a name, and we are done. It is time to head into adventure. Now, we obviously are not going to be able to cover, exactly all the things about the races. And it looks like it's mostly like, random tables for hair color and eye color, along with all the different things that you can start with and how much they cost, which we've seen a little bit of before anyways. There's not that many races. And we're not going to cover all the cultures. And again, the professions basically are just bundles of skills. So if we look at the Bard, this is a mundane progression. It costs 150 AP. Are elves cheaper or more expensive? Elves, I think, are like 18. Humans are 0. Humans are 0. And then elves are... I was right. Look, elves are 18. That is the most evil thing that anyone. I'll just close the channel. You're right, Aldark. I'm not gonna punish anybody, but I'll just close the channel. You can't stop me from doing that. The human cultures cost more. Interesting. And then the dwarves are 60 fucking 1. Yeah, big dick dwarves. Rawr. All right. Professions are just bundles of skills, basically. So for 150 AP, you get the Bard package. And then you get 16 AP for languages and literacy. You get the skill specialization in music. You get daggers 8, brawling 8. Because remember, you can buy all these. So really, it's like a bundle. It's just a bundle of packages. And then you could specify if you want. You could even go for the Scald, which is 162 AP, or the Storyteller, which is 144 AP, and you just get like a slightly different, kind of alter. But it's just a bundle of skills and stuff. I don't, it's pretty. I think you could just buy this stuff anyways. I don't know if maybe you get it at a discount because of the package. So you're encouraged to use the package, but I'm not sure. But, they've got Bard, they've got Courtier, Gladiator, Healer, Hunter, Knight, Mercenary, Merchant. What's going on with that guy? Performer, Rogue, Sailor, Spy, Tinker, Tailor, Soldier, Tribal Warrior, sensitive, Warrior, not to be confused with Tribal Warrior. Okay, what's going on with that? Magical professions. We have the Spell Weaver, the Cat Witch, the Wild Runner, the Raven Witch, the Toad Witch, the Black Mage, the Gray Mage, the Guildless Mage, the White Mage. I'm not going to lie. I actually think that art is really cool for this White Mage. It's something about having the sword that really sets it off for me. Like, this guy is obviously not a warrior, but I really like that he has a sword. I actually really like this piece of art. This is like my favorite piece of art in the whole thing. But yeah, I agree, Simon. Just to help people hone in. There's nothing wrong with that. I think that's great. Because if it's just like make whatever, buy whatever skills, like that would be somehow even more overwhelming than this already is. And then we have got the divine professions. We've got the different gods. So this is the Blessed One of Boron, Hysinde, Pirain, Fex, Preos, and Rondra. Rondra. Pretty cool. Then there's our big list of descriptions of all the different advantages and disadvantages, which we're not going to go through, but, we talked about how, again, Contortionist helps you for body control, acrobatics, and squirm, but nothing else. And then there's all the different skills, which we kind of looked ahead, but, so body control is used for acrobatics, balance, combat maneuvers, jumping, running, and squirming. And it rolls 3 checks, agility, and con. And there's information about all of this, including its improvement cost, what happens on a crit success, a botch, a failed check, what happens with quality, is it affected by your encumbrance level? Yeah, very roll mastery in that regard. So that's our skills section. We're not going to go through all the skills. We've looked at them on the character sheets. We know that they're pretty dang descriptive. For example, climbing has applications of ice, mountains, trees, walls. Like you're climbing a fence. Oh no, is that a wall? I guess. And then that brings us to combat. And then we have a Japanese saying here, of course, because we're playing this game of Aventuria. Why not give me a quote from a traditional Japanese saying? We got a couple quotes from a couple people. All right, I'm ready for it. All right. A combat round can be chaotic and complex, often as a matter of life and death. That's why players and GMs need a frame of reference to judge when combatants can act. For that reason, we divide combat into units of times called combat rounds. They are between 2 to 5 seconds. Wow. You use initiative to determine the order in which you go. Once rolled, initiative normally stays the same until the end of that combat. However, certain things, such as the spell Acceleratress, can change your initiative. Roll a d6 and add your initiative stat. Simple, easy, okay. Highest goes first. To attack, you must use your attack rating to make a close combat attack. To attack an opponent in close combat, you must roll against your character's attack stat. For that, you roll a single d20. Okay. That feels like a blessing. If the result is lower than or equal to your attack value, your character hits the opponent. But the opponent can try to parry or dodge. So it's like Hackmaster, like Rollmaster, like, BRP, where it's this like opposed roll under system. There's a distance, how far you can attack away. There's the combat technique value, which, as I expected, would be abbreviated CTV. Measures a fighter's skill with a certain type of weapon. Every weapon has an associated combat technique. If you're encumbered from weapons, that can affect your combat stats. Pain can also affect your combat stats. Damage point. You can use weapons, rocks, or even your bare fist to hurt the enemy. Damage points reflect how much damage you inflict. The enemy loses that many life points when unable to defend against your attack. To determine damage, you usually roll 1d6 or 2d6, and sometimes add a bonus. Subtract the target's protection from the damage points you roll, and then subtract any remaining points from the target's life points. In brief, DP rolled minus pro equals DP taken. So armor is damage reduction. Damage is 1d6, 2d6 plus a modifier minus their damage reduction, which is called pro or protection. And then additionally, we have to roll under our attack stat, and then our opponent has the option to parry or dodge. Parry, and this is called defense. Parry and dodge are types of defenses. You can attempt one defense, either a parry or a dodge, per incoming attack. Dodge. Sometimes it's necessary to jump out of the way because parrying doesn't work, especially if you don't have a shield. This is particularly true for ranged attacks and close combat attacks from a large or giant enemy. Makes sense. I mean, Dragonbane does the same thing, right? You can't dodge, or you can't parry a monster's attacks. You can only dodge them. Life points are measure our health, and remember, as we lose life points, we gain pain. Maneuvers are attacks that are made possible by special abilities. Often they impose a penalty, but they also grant you initial bonus effects, almost like called shots, right? Like you could take a penalty to maybe try to do more damage or some sort of special bonus. And then parry, you make a check with your D20, single D20, against your parry stat. If your result is lower than or equal to your parry stat, you divert the blow without taking any damage. A parry is a form of defense. Protection is armor of all kinds. It has a stat called protection. Pro, you subtract pro from all DP you receive. Some attacks, such as spells or certain animal attacks, ignore pro and deal damage regardless of the armor. And then lastly, ranged combat is you just make a ranged combat check, and it works just like an attack check where you have to roll under. So that actually seems pretty straightforward, all things considered. And remember, we can spend a fate point to go first. So when you take your turn, you can perform an action, a defense, or a free action. Depends on how long the action takes to do and what you want to achieve. In each combat round, every combatant can perform one action, one or more defenses, and one free action. With actions, you do things like attack your enemy or cast a spell. You take actions when it's your turn. If you're willing to wait, you can use your action later. So you can delay, I guess. You can make an attack, range attack. You can move, kick in a door, draw a weapon, load a missile weapon, cast a spell, or cast a chant. So no move action. You get one action, and it's move or attack. Defenses are reactions to attacks. You defend yourself by parrying and dodging, and you don't have to declare your defense until it's necessary. A hero can attempt more than one defense during a combat round if necessary, but only against different attacks, which I guess means you can't make multiple defense checks against the same attack. I'm just going to skip this optional rule. And then free actions is turn around. Does this game have facing? Maybe. And long actions, which could take longer. If you're doing a long action, such as casting certain spells or reloading actions, you could potentially take penalties by being distracted. Tactical movement. If you prefer not to keep track of movement by narration and you want a clearer idea of the distances involved, you can use tactical movement. Combatants use an action or free action to move a number of yards equal to their move stat. I can't believe they used yards here, or maybe they converted that because it's the US version and they don't use meters. In close combat, to hit your opponent with a melee weapon, you must make a check against your attack stat. Generally, it is successful if you're lower. If still capable of defending, the target can try to avoid the attack by making a parry or dodge. As with attacks, the defense roll must be less than or equal to the appropriate defense stat. If successful, the attack has no effect. So it's not comparative. Defense wins. So attacker attacks. If the attacker misses, that's the end of it. They just missed. If the attacker hits and the opponent dodges or parries, if the opponent dodges or parries, that's it. It's over. They didn't do anything. If that dodge or parry fails, then they roll their damage. Then we subtract the protection value of the armor, and any remaining damage, DP, is subtracted from their LP, life points. Gur, Arg, Dwarf versus Orc. It's not a contest. Well, it's not an opposed roll. You know, they basically get a check to counteract it. So it's a double check. Yeah. I mean, obviously there's going to be, modifiers here. Some of your weapons have long reaches, which can give you penalties depending on what range you are. If you're using a long reach weapon at short range, you get a -4 to your attack value. Crits half their defense stat against the attack, and they deal double damage. So it doesn't appear to be like a critical hit table because it just does double damage. Optionally, this is an optional rule for if you botch during combat. Defense. Parry. You could try to prevent taking damage from a hit in close combat by parrying the attack. To do so, make a d20, blah, blah, blah. If you have a shield, you can use it to parry an opponent's successful attack. This is a normal parry check, but the shield grants a bonus to your parry check. Your parry with a shield will usually be higher than your parry with a weapon. A saving throw, one might say. Yes. Except it's like full pass fail. There's no half damage or something. Well, it depends on, how likely are you to hit? How likely are they to defend? But, assuming, you have to hit, so you have like a 50% chance of hitting. And if they have a 50% chance of defending, you're like down to a 25%. Yeah. Also, remember, you could roll low enough on your damage that you don't even get through the creature's protection, their DR value. So that could happen too. So you could hit, you could roll lower. So here are the 3 ways that you could be fucked. You could just miss. That's number 1. Number 2, you could hit, but then they dodge or parry. So that's number 2. And then number 3 is you could hit, they could fail to dodge or parry. And then 3, you could roll so low on your damage that it doesn't get through their protection. Yeah, awesome. So I don't know what the ratio is of damage to protection. It did say D6 and 2D6 plus sometimes the modifier. And I know that like the full plate or skill plate had like a protection value of like 8 or 7. So yikes. Okay. Dodge. You can dodge. It is not possible to make more than one defense check against a single attack. It is possible to defend against different attacks made by different enemies. Performing more than one defense per combat round becomes increasingly difficult. Your first defense has no penalty, but each additional defense suffers a cumulative penalty of 3. This means that your second defense is -3, your third is -6, your fourth is -9. I know it's simulationist and crunchy and you're tracking that and it's horrible and you're going to have some way to track it, but I actually really like that. Because it's this idea that like enough creatures can, when you have an active defense, they can wear you down. I'm a big fan of that. I actually really like that. And in fact, some of my reaction-based systems have used something very similar to that, where basically at a certain point, except it wasn't a cumulative penalty. It was like once you ran out of reactions to dodge or parry, then they just started hitting you automatically. We didn't even have a separate attack roll. The assumption, basically, it was all player facing. If a monster attacked you, they hit, you had to parry it or dodge. And then if you did that, you would make a check. And if you succeeded, they didn't do any damage. But once you ran out of those reactions, then they would just do damage. Anyways, so yes, it's like map. It's like defensive map. Hey, Agile Monk, what's up? Well, I didn't really say that much. There were a lot of people going on. We had Jess, and we had Dungeons and Discourse, and Mark and Steven, and so I don't even think I really said much. Parrying weapons and shields requires the appropriate combat technique and can be used in conjunction with a single close combat weapon or even a second weapon if you're using 2 combat weapons. Characters with the combat technique shields double their parry bonus when parrying with a shield instead of their main weapon. When defending with a shield, it's important to decide whether you want to use the shield passively, adding its parry to the base parry stat of your main weapon, or actively with the combat technique shields to receive the doubled parry bonus. I don't know if I fully understand that. Might just be too long. Also, if you crit as a defender, you get to make an immediate attack of opportunity. Sweet. And here's an optional defensive botch character, blah, blah, blah. So all the combat skills are treated separately. They use a different check, agility. They can be improved here. I don't know, Keith. Maybe somebody who's played the Dark Eye can explain what this active parrying means. Like, why wouldn't I just use that? I don't know. A lot of text. I mean, this is double column text, minimal gutter. It's just blah. Damage threshold. Depending on the combat technique, heroes receive damage point bonuses from high primary attributes. All melee weapons have a stat called damage threshold, which is in the equipment. If a combatant's attribute is greater than a weapon's damage threshold, every hit inflicts +1 damage per attribute point above the damage threshold. So that's how you get that bonus damage. So if we look over here, is that what the P plus T is? Oh, yeah, primary attribute and damage threshold modifier. I don't know why it's P plus T, but so like, for example, if we're using a fencing weapon and we want to do bonus damage with our foil, which does D6 plus 2, for every point above 14 agility, we deal an additional point of damage. So if we had agility 16, we would be doing D6 plus 4 damage. Here are all our weapons. There's apparently one chain weapon. Brawling, chain, combat technique, daggers, fencing, impact weapons, lances, pole arms, shields, swords, two-handed swords, two-handed impact. Look at that. Barbarian axe, 2d6 plus 4 damage. Crunch. And these are the modifiers for attacking and parrying. So you can see, for example, that the barbarian axe is shitty to parry with, right? Like you get a -4 penalty to your attempt so if your combat technique two-handed impact weapon was rated at, I don't know, 12. If you attempted to parry with it, it would go down to like 8. So it's not very easy to parry with this. Meanwhile, if we look at the parry abilities of the shield, like the great shield, actually is tough to attack with. But it gives us +3 to our parry bonus and potentially could even be used in an active way to double it or something. Okay. It's not like it's actually somehow combat's like the easiest part of the game. Am I crazy? I mean, obviously, I'm sure there's more stuff to it, but here's our protection, by the way. So yeah, like plate and scale at 5 and 6 is no joke. I mean, like a lot of those 1d6 weapons are going to get completely hosed by the higher levels of armor. Disengage. There's a disengage rule if you want to flee from combat, if you aren't engaged in combat at the moment, you can move using the normal rules. Oh, so if you're engaged in active combat, want to move away, you have to first disengage. This takes an action and a body control check with a penalty equal to the number of opponents within active. So you cannot leave melee combat unless you make a check. You have to call it 13th Age. 13th Age calls it popping free. Yeah. And if you fail, you still can move, but you suffer an attack of opportunity. So I guess you can. There are many conditions that warrant attacks of opportunity, and these look to be free attacks. No defense is possible against an attack of opportunity, but the attack of opportunity suffers a -4 penalty because you're making it so quick, I guess, and out of action, and cannot be combined with any special abilities. In addition, there are no critical hits and botches for attacks of opportunity. Well, at least they're trying to make them quick and fast, and I at least appreciate that. Rules for ambushed. Here's our cramped spaces rules coming up again. You can see that if you have a long reach weapon and you are inside a cramped space, you are in for a bad time. You're going to be at -8 to your attack and -8 to your parry attempts. Brutal. Better bring a dagger. You brought a pole arm to a cave fight. Just terrible. We got flanking, attacking from behind, advantageous position, attacking in water, picking up items in combat, visibility modifiers, size modifiers, rules for man-mounted combat, ranged combat, ranged modifiers, size modifiers, movement modifiers. Is the target motionless? Easier to hit them. Are they moving? Did they move 4 or less yards in their last action? No modifier. If they're moving quickly, did they move 5 yards or more in their last action? -2. Are they zigzagging? Then a -4 to your check to hit them. But the movement of the target is halved if they are actively zigzagging. And now we know why Rickon wasn't zigzagging. Did I walk? Did I run in my last action? Now remember, you can't move and take an action on the same turn. It's one or the other. So I have to remember how far I moved last turn, and we have to remember how far my target moved last turn to shoot at them. Oh, did they zigzag also? also the range, also their size. So, I have combat technique bow. We are at close range. So my combat technique bow of 14, which is pretty good, goes up to 16, and I'm going to do an additional damage point because we are at close range. Great, 16. However, my target is small, and they are a small little, I don't know, goblinoid type creature. So my 16 goes down to a 12. We started at 14, we went up to 16, now we're down to 12. However, the goblin creature moved last turn a lot. In fact, it moved 5 or more yards. So our 14, which went up to 16, down to 12, is now down to 10. And I moved 4 yards last turn. So now our 10 is down to an 8. And we're not on a mount. However, what is the visibility like? Well, there's some sparse leaves and some morning mist. So now our 8 is down to a 6. And that's it. Now we can shoot. Sounds good. We got bows, crossbows, reload times. Now here come the combat special abilities. These are like the combat. And then that's right, Akamos. And then we succeed and we hit because we rolled a 4. And then our opponent dodges and it does nothing. No, our opponent doesn't. They do dodge and they fail. And then I roll the d6, and I get an additional point of damage because we're at close range. I roll a 1, which becomes 2, because my damage bonus is +1. So I do 1d6 plus 1, which becomes, I roll a 1, I get 2, their armor is 4, and it does nothing. And then here are our combat special abilities, basically combat feats, like being able to catch blade and charging. So charging, for example, is going to let you move and attack in the same turn. So actually having this is really, really cool because, you know, yeah, you can learn them individually if you meet the prerequisites and spend the necessary adventure points. So you have to have Forceful Blow 1 and Onslaught and a courage rating of 13 or higher to be able to charge your enemy. And you have to take the charge. You don't just get charged. You have to like buy it, I think. I don't know what the cost of this is, but I'm sure we missed it back in the character creation things, but these all cost adventure points. What does the penalty do? Oh, here it is. AP value 25 points. So to do charge, you have to have Courage 13, Onslaught, and Forceful Blow 1. Then you spend 25 adventure points. Now you can charge, but only with impact weapons, pole arms, swords, two-handed impact weapons, and two-handed swords. Blah, 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 blah. More combat special abilities. And then we're done. We get to magic. And we're not going to cover magic, as we often don't get to cover magic. But there's the detailed rules for social ranks. Sweet. The regeneration phase, how much LP arcane how much life points, arcane energy, and karma points do you get back based off of the level of your camp situation, the interruption of your rest, the length, are you diseased, are you in good conditions, yada, yada, yada. I like that they say interruption of nightly rest, e.g. dog watch, and then they have this big dotted line that goes all the way down to this little secondary thing, which says dog watch is an old naval term for a 2-hour guard shift between 4 p.m. and 8 p.m. More regeneration, falling damage, burning damage, poison damage, suffocation damage. Are there water pressure rules? If this game doesn't have water pressure rules, no game should have water pressure rules. I do not see any water pressure rules in this game. We do have hypothermia levels. So there's that. We have extreme heat levels. How much are you drinking? You get bonuses or penalties depending on how many pints you have per day. You have visibility, again, strategic movement, how fast you can move in a terrain, structural damage, how many life points does a barrel have? The answer is 50. Take care. We're almost done. And then we can spend all of our AP. We can buy attributes, skills, combat point techniques, life points, arcane energy, karma points, advantages, disadvantages, special abilities, cantrips, blessings, spells, rituals, and liturgical chats. Here is all the tables for all the improvement costs. Some of these things are maxed too. Your LP can't be higher than your con. Your arcane energy can't be higher than your primary attribute. Yada yada yada. And then there we have a bestiary, which is just an example because they don't really give that many things. So here is a bat. I mean, it's a demon. It looks like a flying eye with a bat. So this is the demon bat stat block. It is 1 foot tall with a 6 foot wingspan. It's courage, sagacity, int, charisma, dex, agility, constitution, strength, life point, arcane energy, karma points, initiative. I think that's supposed to be DO. Spirit, toughness, move, pinch, attack 15, damage 1d6, range short. It has 1 action, no protection, no encumbrance. Here is its advantages and disadvantages, which you'll have to look up in the book. It has dark sight 2, exceptional senses, afraid of their own reflection, negative trait curiosity, no special abilities. Here are all of its skills. Body control 8, which uses 18-18-8 because it's body control. So it's agility, constitution, feat of strength, flying, intimidation, perception, self-control. Here are of its spells: great confusion, horrifibus, powerful greed, visible eye. A number appearing as 1 or 2d6. It's small. It's a demon. It's loot. It's combat behavior. It's sphere lore, and all that other stuff. And here is like a more proper demon in its full text block. Which is the thing. I really do think this DE is the dodge, and I think earlier they were calling it DO. But I think this DE is supposed to be dodge. No, it says DO. But there's no DE. It's got to be dodge. Just some editing problems, I guess. Here is a fire spirit, a fire genie. Yada, yada. We looked at the equipment. Game tips. The heroes are the protagonists. Said is done. Improvisation. Open versus hidden dice rolls. Rules are tools. Group size, 4 to 5 players. Start small. We only play what I want. Hey, we kind of were talking about this in the other day. If you are the GM and you're preparing a campaign centering on the high elves, but all your players hate elves, then it won't come as a surprise that the adventurers, no matter how good they might be, make neither you nor your players happy. It is best to discuss the type of adventures that you all want to play. If your players do not have any special wishes, perfect. You can do whatever you want. And this is this whole like who gets the deciding there to say final decision is it the players or the GM? Because without the GM, you don't have a campaign. But without any players, the GM is stuck playing a solo game. Tough luck, you're dead. Player tips. The GM is almost always right. Not said is not done. You play together. Do not play your role at all costs. Hey, some good advice. A role-playing game is meant to allow you to take on another role. Some of these roles are quite outgoing. That's all right, but do not put your role above the plot, which is terrible, but above the plot and the roles of the other players. The GM works hard to run an exciting adventure with all the players. Don't sabotage the GM's plans to move the story forward because you think your role demands that of you. Oh my God, perish the thought. Rather, try to bring the story in line with your hero's personality development. There are many ways to stay in character without hindering the group's goals, aka take an authorial stance and don't be as worried about the actor rules. Talk about the rules. Player knowledge versus hero knowledge. Checklist for a successful game night. Is the GM allowed to influence the hero's development, or are the players allowed to do whatever they want? Is the GM a first among equals? If there is an argument, does the whole group decide, or does the GM make a decision? Should the GM roll the dice in open, such as for combat example, or keep them hidden behind a screen? Is the GM allowed to break the rules, for example, to avoid a hero's death in a less than heroic situation because there was a bad dice roll? Again, we talked about this before. Fudging, not great, but if you're going to do it, at least talk about it and say you're going to do it. Are the players allowed to influence the world by, for example, deciding if there are complications with a skill check or if there are useful items lying around? Does the GM decide to add new players to the group unilaterally, or do all the players decide together? Does the group alternate GMs after each adventure, or is a regular GM who runs the game? Heroes, what type of heroes should you play? Are you exotic heroes, enriching, or disruptive? Do all players create characters alone and in secret, or do the players and GMs discuss and conduct hero creation together? Are you a ragtag mix of PCs, or are you a thematic group? Do you have a large number of different skills at low levels, or do you want them to be particularly good at a few specialties? Blah, 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 blah. What kind of adventures do you want to go on? What topics do you want to avoid? You know, basic lines and veils stuff here. And then some information about 2 pages on how to make an adventure, I guess. And then here's the optional rule checklist. And then here's a list of all the abbreviations. The tables for modifiers, for attributes, which is different from the modifiers for skill checks, our quality level comparison matrix, our cumulative checks requirements, our permitted checks for a cumulative check, encumbrance effects, confusion, rapture, fear, pain, paralysis, and stupor effects, the primary attributes of these different core critical skills for combat, the requirements for routine checks, all of the skills, including whether they are affected by encumbrance and what their improvement costs are, the order of combat and initiative, the effects for being cramped, range, size, modifiers for movement, size, and comparison for close combat, mounted, the different categories of creatures and for casting spells, which we skipped, and visibility modifiers, falling damage, hypothermia, heat, fire, acid, cold, costs to improve ability scores, skills, and combat charts, and the index. And with that, and the character sheet, all 7 pages of character sheets, we have completed The Dark Eye. First look. Okay. Well, it couldn't have been any worse, Lord High Summer. Here's the deal. It's not the worst RPG I've ever read. Somehow, I mean, the triple dice thing is out of pocket. That's for sure. I mean, I see there's a potential, you know, where you could actually make it really cool with, you know, doing something with the triple action and resolving or something. It's very detailed. It's very gritty. It's very, you know, this is like, I used to play a lot of Warhammer. Okay. And, you know, I got the old world. I haven't played that yet, but I used to play like a lot of 6th edition, 7th edition, the war game, not the RPG. And I liked playing, you know, I wanted to get down. I wanted to put my miniatures on the table and I wanted to, like, you know, do it. But, you know, I played with people like my buddy Larry, and, you know, what he really loved was like sitting there and doing the point to counting. Well, he made his army list, you know, all right, hey, we're going to play a 3,000 point game, you know, and he's like, okay, I want to take this unit and I'm going to give them shields and I'm going to give them flails. And on this unit, I'm going to only put 7 in. Nah, I'm going to put 8 and I'm going to give them this. And I'm going to put the, like, he really liked the, you know, the fastidiousness of the point to counting. If you like that, and that's what you want out of your RPG experience, then boom, you know, and again, that's for everybody. What is the GNS score? Enriff asks. Well, it has fate points. The fate points give you some degree of narrative control. Not much, but it's there. So it can't be N0. So I would say it's more like N, you know, N1, maybe N2. because you even get the fate points back by, achieving goals and like doing great heroic things. So there's an encouragement there to act in a certain behavior, and the game rewards you for playing that way. So, I actually would say like narrativist, 2. The simulationism is pretty high. I'm trying to think if it's the highest that we've seen here in a long time. It's very high. It's like an 8. There might be a game that is somehow more detailed than this. Some of like the weapons from like that Twilight 2000 game was crazy. So it's like Sim 8, I would say. And then Gamist, I saw very little in here that was Gamist. Nothing about this game seemed to be concerned about making a fun game, which isn't necessarily a knock. It wants to be interesting, but it doesn't necessarily want to be fun as an activity, right? If something is fun, it's an emotional response. If something is interesting, it's an intellectual response. And I think that the mechanics here are more intellectual in their nature. So it's almost like game 0, game 1, narrative 2, like, simulation 8 or 9 or something. Right. I've played, you've seen German board games. This is how they have fun. You know what? This is very true, right? Some of my favorite games, some of my very favorite board games are by Uwe Rosenberg. Okay. And Uwe Rosenberg is a German, and he made games like Agricola and Caverna and Le Havre and Ora et Labora. And some people play those games and they go, what is this game? And I'm like, oh yeah, it's this complex economic engine where you're trying to feed your family. And, what sim level is Hackmaster? 10. It's 10. It's like 10. It's like 9. Hackmaster, I think, is more sim than this, honestly. Honestly, I really do. Like, absurdly so. Lance says it's an 11. It goes too far. Tundalus, thank you for the super chat. Thank you for covering this. So not for me, but interesting. Interesting, yes. I mean, I would not want to like go through the rigmarole of playing this game, but I feel like after a while you'd get the hang of it, and you would just accept it as it was, and it strangely kind of started to make sense there at the end in some weird way. I do have to give the game like poor marks though. Like none of that is about what the game is about. Like the game is like, it's a game of heroic adventure. Like none of that seemed like that's for heroic adventure. It just seems like it's for point accounting and, this gritty simulation realism of some weird fantasy medieval world. How do the mechanics interlock with that? I have no idea. Is the game rewarding what you're supposed to be? We actually didn't look. I didn't actually see that. That's actually a great question. Let me say, how do you earn adventuring points? Did we miss that entirely? There we go. Adventure points. Each character should earn about 10 to 20 adventure points for a short scenario, taking 2 to 3 sessions to complete. A dangerous adventure lasting 4 to 6 sessions should garner 50 or more adventure points. So there you go. So, you're not really rewarded for doing anything other than getting through the scenario. So like the primary thing that you're trying to do is get through the Dungeon Master's adventure or the Game Master's adventure. So like I find that to be a very unsatisfying reward cycle personally. I mean, I just don't think it doesn't lead to any sort of interesting behavior, No, I will pass. The good news is the quick start's like 20 pages long, so I don't know how they managed that. Hey, Duncan.
Duncan DT tipped $3. Interesting. Maybe it would have worked as not a fantasy setting, but seems too clunky.
Oh, it's very clunky. I don't know that making it not fantasy would have somehow magically made it less clunky, because I mean that's that is how it is. That's how it be. Overall, not the worst game. You know, the triple thing was really bad. I'm not gonna lie, that was painful. I don't know why we need to roll 3 stats. But we did skip the magic system, so that could be a whole thing unto itself. But you know, it sounds like it uses his same skill check system and thing. You know, here's the thing. I don't want to play this game. Like I'm not, but I would play it. You know, like I don't want to play this game, but I would play it. It would be like, you know, a really crunchy version of 3E. You know, it would be like playing Rollmaster or GURPS. You know, in that respect, Riffs. One of those just really high sim, real point accounting flaws, quirks, traits. You know, points this, points that. Everything is a point. Everything is, you know. In some ways, it's like, you know, Mutants and Masterminds. In some ways, it's a pointy accounting game. It's a simulationist superhero game. So, but yeah, I would not make one just because I really don't. No, I just really do not want to play it. I've got so much else going on that I don't have the time for anything like that. But yeah, that was interesting and fun, and you know, now I understand Europeans a lot better because this is the #1 game in Europe, triggering everybody instantaneously. Well, you know what? It is definitely the German game, and I've not met too many Germans in my life. I've met some, and my understanding is that you know, they have a certain style. I've played a lot of their board games, and I will say that you know, this does feel par for their course for their, and I like their board games. I do like their board games. Their board games are complex, and they mechanize and focus on things that most people, you know, would rather not have to deal with. In fact, one of the main problems that people had with Agricola, with the original UA Rosenberg game, was that they were basically stressed out from playing it because the game was so punishing, and you had to feed your family, and everybody would just get so nervous and so like concerned about how am I going to feed my family. And like it put them into this like pressure thing, and they're like, I don't have enough resources. I'm panicking. How do I feed my family and get resources to score points? Oh my God, my world is falling down. I'm so, and I love that game. So, although I do like Caverna better. So, and it's all about creating an efficient and effective farm production system. And that way you can feed your family easily and continue to create excess products for profit and for points. And, you know, I love it. I love creating that system and watching it kind of churn. Other people, not so much. Anyways, I liked it. So it's definitely a style. As for role-playing games these days, it's just too crunchy for me. Too many dice. And the three dice, having to compare them, and they each get modified, then spending the skill ranks to buy successes off of them, and whatever's left gets modified to the quality level. Like, that's just so fiddly. And I'm like, and for what? And, you know, and for what? That's what it ultimately, it's just creating a success or a fail. Like, why do we need to go through that entire process? I don't know why. To make it, you know, substantially different enough in the 1980s from D&D to not get sued? Maybe. But it was fun hanging out with everybody today and get to see a bunch of faces that we don't usually get to see in chat. So that was great. And we did really well. You guys really threw your support into this stream, and I'm really happy to see that. Loved to come back, and we'll do another EU stream real soon. Another dungeon creation stream in the works, and trying to figure out what we're going to do for 2025 and where we want to place our efforts. So looking forward to that. And of course, we're going to be doing some Torchbearer games here this year and get some of those games out to YouTube. And who knows what the fate of our Fabulous Ultimate game is. At the very least, we'll be kind of giving updates and talking about it, which I think will be a lot of fun as well. So thanks to all of our viewers. Remember, like the video if you watch this long, subscribe if you haven't done so already, and leave a comment. Again, any sort of interaction thing helps us get this thing out into the YouTube lands, and maybe it gets us an extra, you know, couple subs, because again, I have no dreams of getting to 100K, but you know, maybe someday we can get to like 20K or 25K would be pretty cool. So thanks everybody for hanging out with me today. I know that we went a little over here, but that's all right. And we will see you next time on Knights of Last Call. Have a good evening, day, everybody.
RPG.